Chapter 79. I'm back. Fengjiu, who was in the courtyard, looked up and saw him angrily return. He couldn't help but ask with a smile, "What's wrong? Who provoked you?" "I wanted the Kuf family." He walked to the table and poured himself a cup of water. "You wanted the Kuf family?" She looked at him strangely. "I thought you went back to the Guan family." "I'm not going back to the Guan family. I'll go back in 3 months. I'm going to cultivate in seclusion for the next 3 months. Hearing this, she blinked in surprise. "How did you get so agitated after going out for a while?" He told her what the Kuf family said. In the end, he said, "So I've decided. If they want to get married, then let them get married to their heart's content. Anyway, in the family selection in 3 months, I'll definitely defeat Guan Shirwan. I'll let them know that I, Guan Shilin, am not a pushover." He would make them regret it. Not only the Kuf family, but also the elders of the Guan family. They all thought that he was inferior to Guan Shirwan, but he would prove to them that Guan Shirwan was inferior to him. Fengjiu nodded. "Yes, I agree. I just sent Lung Shuang to the black market. In 3 months, I'll heal your hand." His heart warmed, and he smiled. "Xiaojiu, thank you. You're my brother. What's there to thank me for? All right, go back to your room and cultivate. Before your hand recovers, you should learn the cultivation technique well. Then, you'll be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort." "All right, then I'll go back to my room first." He stood up and went back to his room. The following days were peaceful and busy. Guan Shilin was busy cultivating the cultivation technique. Fengjiu was also busy cultivating and developing medicine. Because of the busy days, time passed in the blink of an eye. Unknowingly, it had been 2 months since they returned to Yinhua City. Moreover, using the method of bartering, she managed to gather all the medicine she needed in less than a month. In half a month, she also cured her brother's hand. In these 2 months, her reputation in Yinhua City had gradually spread. Even those who had never been to the black market knew that there was a ghost doctor in Yinhua City. Not only was she skilled in medicine, she was also proficient in refining medicine. It's just that the dragon's head and tail are rarely seen. I've only heard of the ghost doctor's name, but never seen the ghost doctor's face. If anyone in the entire Yinhua City knew who the ghost doctor was, without a doubt, the black market was the manager of the black market. However, the black market was not an ordinary force. The black market's influence was spread across many countries. Even the king of the Glorious Sun Kingdom could not pry open the black market's mouth to reveal the identity of the ghost doctor. Many forces came to seek an audience with the ghost doctor, but they were all rejected. Even the king of the Glorious Sun Kingdom did not manage to meet the ghost doctor. It was also because of this that the ghost doctor's identity became more and more mysterious, making people more and more curious. In the morning, in the courtyard, Fengjiu was teaching Lung Shuang's younger brother, Lung Hua, Tai Chi when he heard Guan Shilin's joyful voice from afar. "Xiaojiu, the peach blossoms in the Peach Blossom Temple have bloomed. Didn't you say you want to go and see? I'll go with you today." Fengjiu slowly retracted his fist and sighed softly. He said to Lung Hua, "Continue practicing." Then, he looked at Guan Shilin and said, "Brother, I've already asked Lung Shuang to prepare. We'll leave in a while. But, you don't have to go." Chapter 80. Fengjiu smiled. "How could that be? It's not like you don't know Lung Hua's skills. Besides, don't forget that you have to defeat Guan Shirwan in front of the Guan family in a month's time. How can you not practice?" She paused, then continued, "Besides, I heard that the scenery in Peach Blossom Temple is pretty good. I plan to stay there for a few days before coming back." "Stay for a few days?" He was stunned, but Peach Blossom Temple doesn't allow people to stay there overnight. Fengjiu smiled slyly. "They don't allow people to stay there overnight, but look at what this is." She took something out of her space and waved it in front of him. Guan Shilin took it and looked at it. He couldn't help but exclaim, "A land deed? A land deed for Peach Blossom Temple? How'd you get it?" "Someone came to the black market to see me last month. I didn't want to bother with it, but I accepted it when I saw that it was Peach Blossom Temple. So, this place will be ours from now on." She smiled and put away the land deed. "Since I have some free time now, I'll go take a look. First, I'll admire the peach blossoms, and second, I'll check out the place. If I think it's good, I'll use it as a place for the ghost doctor to stay. Guan Shilin's eyes lit up. Peach Blossom Temple has a lot of peach blossoms. The outer area is filled with all kinds of peach blossoms. Although it's called Peach Blossom Temple, it has nothing to do with a temple. I've seen it once from afar and saw that the pavilions inside were very elegant. I also heard that the peach blossoms in the inner area were transplanted from other places. They bloom all year round and are very beautiful. Hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at him and joked, "Brother, you know quite a lot." Guan Shilin scratched his head and smiled. "I've only been there once with a few friends, so I know a little." Then he saw that she was still smiling at him. So he waved his hand. "You guys go ahead. I won't go with you. I'll go there next time." "Well, it won't be too late for you and Lung Hua to go there after everything is done." She nodded and looked at Lung Hua, who was practicing Tai Chi behind her, and said, "Come here." After Lung Hua withdrew his hand, he exhaled softly and walked quickly to her side. "Master." Ever since he woke up, his health improved day by day. In the past, he found it difficult to even walk a few steps. Now, he could even learn Tai Chi from his master. Although he also felt that this soft Tai Chi was useless, but his master said that it was good for his body, so he followed and practiced. Looking at the youth who had gained some weight after 2 months of care, Fengjiu smiled and said, "I'll go to the Peach Blossom Temple with your sister. You stay here and take care of your body. Also, keep an eye on my brother and see if he's slacking off." Lung Hua glanced at Guan Shilin beside him and nodded seriously. "Yes, I'll keep an eye on young master." "Do I need him to keep an eye on me? It's already good enough that this kid can take care of himself." Guan Shilin muttered in a low voice. Fengjiu didn't mind and continued, "Also, you have to practice Tai Chi sooner or later." "Okay," he replied again. At this time, Lung Shuang, who was dressed in tight black clothes, came in. Seeing that they were all in the courtyard, he came to Fengjiu's side and said, "Master, the carriage is ready." "Well, I'll go change my clothes and then leave," she said and walked towards her room. Lung Shuang looked at her younger brother, his gaze softening as he said in a gentle voice, "I'll go out with Master. You take care of yourself at home." Chapter 81. Hearing this, Guan Shilin also nodded and said, "Yes, you're right. You must take good care of her, especially don't let those perverts get close to Xiaojiu." The more he thought about it, the more worried he became. Actually, I should go with her. Unfortunately, Xiaojiu didn't let him go, and he had to stay at home practice. Lung Shuang saw his worried look and said, "Young master, don't worry. I'll take care of her." Then, he said a few more words to Lung Hua, then went to the door to wait for Fengjiu to come out. Not long after, Fengjiu, who had changed into a red dress, stepped out with Lung Shuang. After getting into the carriage, she said to the 2 people who saw her to the door, "We're leaving. You can go back. Be careful on the road." Guan Shilin said. In fact, it was only about 4 hours by carriage from here to Peach Blossom Temple, but he acted as if they were going very far, repeatedly reminding them like an old mother. Fengjiu lowered the curtain of the carriage, and Lung Shuang, who was sitting outside, asked the coachman to drive away to Peach Blossom Temple. At the same time, Feng Manor, Wenyu Courtyard. "Guer, are you done? Yishuan has been waiting for you outside for most of the day." General Feng, who was dressed in black and had a tall and sturdy body, was pacing back and forth outside, looking at the closed door from time to time. When he saw the door open and his precious daughter come out, he hurried over. "What do you want me to say to you? Since Ruoyan left, you haven't even added a maid to stay by your side. How can you do everything by yourself? You're my daughter, Feng Xiao. You don't have to do anything. There will be servants to take care of you properly. Listen to me. Later, find a maid to stay by your side. If it doesn't work, I'll get one from the phone guards for you." Feng Qing's eyes were filled with smiles as a trace of coquettishness appeared on her beautiful face as she reached out to hold his hand. "Father, you don't have to worry about it. This is a small matter. I can do it myself. Besides, I am the daughter of General Weiwu. If I let others take care of me for everything, won't others say that I am too weak?" When Feng Xiao heard this, his thick, sword-like eyebrows immediately stood up. He glared at them and said, "Who dares to say it? If anyone dares to say anything, I'll teach them a lesson. He paused for a moment before continuing. Daughters are meant to be pampered. What's more, I only have you as my precious daughter. If I don't dote on you, who will I dote on? All right. Let's talk about this later. All right, let's go to the front hall. Don't let Brother Moron wait for too long. She pulled him towards the front hall. You also know that you've made him wait for a long time? Then I'll hurry back and find another maid. She can help you with some things and save you a lot of time. He warned her. Although his expression was rough and his face was dignified, his gaze was full of doting. Yes. I'll listen to you. I'll look for one later. I'll definitely look for one. She repeatedly agreed. Feng Xiao nodded in satisfaction and smiled. That's more like it. In the front hall, Murong Yixian was holding a teacup as he looked at the tea in his cup. He was a little distracted. During this period of time, he kept thinking about the red-clothed woman he met in Stone Forest Town. Not for anything else, but for that inexplicable sense of familiarity. He once suspected that Chinga had been swapped, but he found out that she knew everything that only the two of them knew. Chapter 82. Just as he was thinking about it, he heard laughter coming from outside. He looked up and saw her holding Feng Zhao's arm as they walked in. The intimacy between father and daughter was natural. That expression and intimacy couldn't be faked. Moreover, if it really was a fake, how could Feng Xiao, as her father and her closest relative, not be able to detect it? In fact, he didn't know that for Feng Xiao, Feng Qinga was his daughter, his closest relative. Even if he suspected anyone, he wouldn't suspect his own daughter. Even if he noticed that something was different from before, he wouldn't think that his daughter had been replaced because such a thing was too inconceivable. Moreover, his daughter was good no matter how he looked at her. No matter what she did or what she became, in his heart, she was still his daughter and shouldn't be suspected. Brother Moron. Feng Qinga let go of Feng Zhao's hand and trotted to his side. She looked at him with joy and adoration. You've been waiting for a long time, haven't you? Putting away the distracting thoughts in his heart, he put down the teacup in his hand and stood up, revealing a gentle smile. No, I haven't been here for long. He looked at Feng Xiao, who walked in, bowed and called out, Uncle Xiao. In the Feng family, he wasn't the third prince, but the future son-in-law of the Feng family. He was Murong Yishuan, whom they had watched grow up. Therefore, he bowed as a junior. Ah, Yishuan, it's rare that you have time to take this girl out. With you accompanying her, I'm relieved. Feng Xiao laughed loudly and said, Peach Blossom Temple is a 2-hour journey from here. This girl has been here for so long, it's getting late. You should set off quickly. Don't go there, it's already noon. Dad, you really don't want to go with us? Anyway, you have nothing to do at home. Why don't we go together? I can accompany you to enjoy the peach blossoms and the scenery of Peach Blossom Temple. She hugged Feng Zhao's arm and swung it gently. Her tone was coquettish. Hearing this, Feng Xiao laughed loudly. No. With Yishuan accompanying you, I'll be in the way. You two go and have fun. There's no hurry to come back. He looked at Murong Yishuan and said, Yishuan, please take care of this girl. The more he looked at his future son-in-law, the more satisfied he was. The two of them had known each other since childhood and were in love with each other. Now, they were just waiting for an auspicious day to hold the wedding. Uncle Xiao, don't worry. I will take good care of Qinga. He looked at the bashful Feng Qinga and a smile appeared on his face, concealing the strange feeling in his heart. Feng Xiao sent the two into the carriage. Only after watching the carriage leave did he enter the Feng Manor. On the other side, at the Peach Blossom Temple, Feng Jiu followed the path to the inner area of the Peach Blossom Temple. The more he looked at the scenery, the more satisfied he was. Such a place was undoubtedly the best place to live. Not only was it suitable for cultivation, but it was also suitable for mental cultivation. The Peach Blossom Nunnery was located in a forest south of Yinhua City. The entire forest was filled with peach blossoms of all colors, and there was no end in sight. The Peach Blossom Nunnery was located in the depths of the Peach Blossom Forest. It was a place as beautiful as a fairyland, but outsiders were not allowed to set foot in it. Even so, When the peach blossoms bloomed in March every year, it still attracted many tourists to Peach Mountain to admire the flowers. They also wanted to see the peach blossom nunnery in the depths of the peach blossom forest. Now, the peach blossom nunnery had fallen into her hands. Chapter 83. Yes, without any questions or doubts. Lung Shuang respectfully replied before returning to pass the message to the blackguards. Once the blackguards received the order, they immediately carried it out. This was Elder Yan's order. They were to unconditionally obey that person's arrangements without the slightest bit of disrespect. Once the order to seal the mountain had been issued, the tourists who had come to admire the flowers on the mountain were naturally chased away. After all, the Peach Blossom Nunnery was a private property. If the owner was willing to let them enter the peach blossom forest to admire the flowers, they could only leave. Because it was still early and there weren't many people in the peach blossom forest, it took less than an hour for the tourists to be chased out of the Peach Blossom Nunnery's territory. At this moment, Fengjiu arrived at a courtyard in the Peach Blossom Nunnery and saw an old man in gray sweeping the courtyard. She stopped and asked, "The servants have all left. Why are you still here?" The old man in gray held the broom and turned around. He looked at the red figure standing under the peach blossom tree in the courtyard with his hands behind his back and said, "I've been sweeping here for more than 10 years. I can't bear to leave." Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. Her gaze fell upon the old man in gray, and an unreadable light flashed through her eyes. "Since you can't bear to leave, then you can continue to stay." The old man in gray was startled. He glanced at her and continued to sweep the ground, not saying anything else. Fengjiu didn't seem to care and turned to leave. After she left, the old man in gray stopped sweeping and glanced in the direction she had left. He then turned away and continued to sweep the ground. When Murong Yixian accompanied Feng Qingge to the Peach Blossom Nunnery, he found out that the new owner of the Peach Blossom Nunnery had ordered the mountain to be sealed for 3 days. When he saw this, he looked at Feng Qingge and said, "We've come at the wrong time. The mountain will be sealed for 3 days. We can only come back 3 days later." Because the mountain was sealed, she was a little unhappy. "Will you still come back with me 3 days later? What if you say you're busy?" Hearing this, he smiled and said gently, "I won't. Since I promised you, I'll definitely do it." "That won't do. Since we're already here, even if we can't enter the mountain, we can still walk around, okay?" As she spoke, she hugged his arm and said, "Big brother Murong, just walk with me." "Very well." He nodded his head and agreed. Hearing this, Feng Qingge's face lit up with joy and she happily said, "Brother Murong, you're the best." Murong Yixian smiled but didn't say much. He just walked slowly with her and looked at the mountain scenery. Perhaps it was because she sensed his coldness. Feng Qingge's heart was a little worried. She suddenly stopped in her tracks and looked at the person beside her. She gently bit her lower lip and asked in an aggrieved tone, "Big brother Murong, do you not like me anymore?" Murong Yixian was slightly surprised. "Why do you say that? Recently, I feel that you seem to be indifferent to me. You don't seem to like being with me." She glanced at him and lowered her eyes. "You weren't like this in the past. Do you not like me anymore?" "Silly girl, why would I?" He smiled and rubbed her head. "I'm just worried." She looked up at him in confusion. Chapter 84. Hearing this, Feng Qingge finally relaxed and a smile appeared on her face again. "Since we're already here, don't think about anything else. The scenery of Peach Mountain is so beautiful. It's a good chance to relax." "Yes," he replied with a smile and walked with her on the mountain path. 3 days was enough for Fengjiu to reorganize Peach Blossom Nunnery. First, she changed Peach Blossom Nunnery to Peach Blossom Cove and used what she had learned to set up arrays around Peach Blossom Cove to separate the inner and outer areas. This way, she wouldn't have to worry about people from the outside accidentally entering Peach Blossom Cove and disturbing her peace. The Peach Blossom Forest could be enjoyed by tourists. However, she set up a rule that people had to pay to enter the forest. There was no one else in Peach Blossom Cove, other than Fengjiu and Lung Shuang. There was only the old man who was sweeping the ground. Peach Blossom Mountain was surrounded, and only one entrance was left. The people guarding the entrance to collect money were the blackguards from the black market. 3 days later, when many tourists came to Peach Blossom Mountain again, they were shocked to find out that they had to pay to enter the peach blossom forest. You have to pay to enter the forest to enjoy the flowers? What kind of rule is this? That's right, we didn't have to pay before. Isn't such a big peach blossom forest open to the public? Why do they have to pay? Some people glared angrily at the blackguards who were guarding the entrance. They felt that it was unreasonable for them to take money and couldn't accept it at all. Some people expressed their understanding. After all, the peach blossom forest was private property. It was reasonable for them to pay to enter other people's private property. If they put themselves in other people's shoes, they wouldn't allow people to enter and enjoy the scenery for no reason. The blackguards wouldn't explain the reason so kindly. One of them glanced at the people who were complaining and said in a low voice, "If you want to enter, pay up. If you don't want to spend money, then stay on the side." After being scolded, those people naturally wouldn't admit that they didn't want to spend money. Thus, they all took out their money with red faces and entered the peach blossom forest angrily. Not far away, Fengxinga held Morong Yixian's hand and looked at the scene in front of her. She said with some confusion, "Has Peach Blossom Nunnery changed owners? Didn't they say that this place was private property and not for sale? Who has such great ability to buy this place?" Morong Yixian's gaze fell on the words Cove of Peach Blossom Cove. His eyes brightened, and he couldn't help but praise. Beautiful words. The Peach Blossom Cove of Peach Blossom Cove was the new owner of Peach Blossom Cove of Peach Blossom Cove, of course. The new owner of Peach Blossom Cove of Peach Blossom Cove's new owner. Furthermore, according to the news, the new owner of the Peach Blossom Cove was the mysterious ghost doctor who he had only heard of recently. Hearing his heartfelt praise, Fengxinga followed his gaze and indeed saw the 3 words Peach Blossom Cove written in bold and flamboyant calligraphy. Even though she wasn't very good at calligraphy, she couldn't help but admit that the 3 words were written very well. Let's go. TTS. S is Heeses, to see. N. Fengxinga responded and walked forward beside him. In the Peach Blossom Cove of Peach Blossom Cove, Fengjiu was sitting under a peach blossom tree, brewing tea and admiring the flowers. Lung Shuang stood guard not far away. Chapter 85. Lung Shuang. Mistress. Lung Shuang walked over from behind. "Go back and tell my brother that I'll go back when he goes back to the Guan family for the election. Tell him not to be distracted and focus on cultivating. Lung Hua can stay there to accompany him for now. We'll come back together when the time comes." "Yes," she responded, but didn't take a step forward. She hesitated for a moment before asking, "Mistress, if I go back, won't you have no one to protect you?" Hearing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but chuckle. She raised her eyebrows and looked at her with ridicule. "Do you think your mistress is so weak that she can't stand up to the wind and needs someone to protect her?" Without waiting for her reply, she waved her hand and said, "Go. You don't need to worry here." In the past 3 days, she had entered the space to cultivate every night. Her strength had improved rapidly, but she had hidden her cultivation so that no one could detect it. After all, her identity as a ghost doctor and alchemist was already in the limelight. If people knew that her strength had improved by leaps and bounds, some people would feel threatened. Moreover, she had an ancient mythical beast in her space. Even if it was still in its infancy, it couldn't be underestimated. After Lung Shuang left, Fengjiu lazily got up and walked out of the Peach Blossom House with light steps. She wasn't dressed as a man in red. Her loose hair was tied up with red silk. She wasn't wearing shoes, so her red dress couldn't cover her delicate snow-white feet. Step by step, she lightly stepped on the curved and smooth stone path, revealing her delicate toes with alluring red nail polish from under her red dress. Unknowingly, she had walked far away. She could faintly hear the melodious sound of a zither coming from outside. "HM?" Her eyes turned, and a trace of surprise flashed through her eyes. Then, she took out a red veil from her sleeve to cover her face. She tapped her toes and shuttled through the peach blossoms like a fairy. Soon, she was out of the maze array. The red figure leaped up and sat on a peach blossom branch that was in full bloom. Her snow-white and delicate feet dangled in the air, swaying leisurely. She appeared to be very leisurely. She lazily leaned against the peach tree branch behind her and reached out to pluck off a peach blossom to play with. Hearing the sound of the zither not far away, the corners of her lips under the veil couldn't help but curl up slightly. The melody of the goddess of Luo was quiet and elegant, like pearls falling on a jade plate, tinkling and crisp. It was also like a mountain stream, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, thin and long. She didn't think that such a famous zither song would exist in this magical world of cultivation. Serene, Serene, I haven't even gone to look for you. Why do you keep coming to me? She murmured in a low voice. A faint light flashed through her half-squinted, beautiful eyes, and a strange smile appeared in her eyes. Just as she was about to leap forward, she suddenly felt a gaze that she couldn't ignore fall on her. She tilted her head slightly and pushed aside the peach blossoms to look over. With this look, a smile couldn't help but appear in her eyes. As the radiance flowed, the smile spread out like a dazzling star, unknowingly mesmerizing. It's her. Murong Yixian stared at her in a daze. His eyes were filled with surprise and nervousness that even he himself didn't notice. He looked at the red figure sitting like a fairy among the peach blossoms. He looked at her pair of snow-white, delicate little feet swaying mischievously in the air. He looked at her head that popped out from behind the peach blossoms and the moving smile in her eyes that seemed to be able to speak. Chapter 86. Big Brother Murong? What are you doing here? Hearing the voice behind him, he came back to his senses and instinctively turned his head to look in the direction of the voice. Chinga, why are you here? As soon as his voice fell, he seemed to remember something and turned his head to look at the peach blossom tree. That fairy-like woman had already disappeared, as if what happened before was just an illusion. Looking at the petals being swayed by the breeze and sprinkling down a mesmerizing rain of flowers, there was a faint and indescribable sense of loss in his heart. You still have the nerve to say that. I originally wanted to play the zither for you, who knew that you would run here to admire the flowers. She followed his gaze and looked over, only to see the petals falling with the wind and sprinkling all over the ground. The red and white peach blossoms here are very mesmerizing. I couldn't help but become infatuated, he said gently with a faint smile on his face, obviously a little absent-minded. Just as she was about to say that the peach blossoms around here were all the same, Feng Qingji's expression suddenly changed and she asked, Big Brother Murong, do you smell any fragrance? Fragrance? The air is filled with the fragrance of peach blossoms. That's not right. She shook her head. There seems to be another kind of smell. As she spoke, she suddenly heard a buzzing sound. Looking towards the source of the sound, she saw a large swarm of black bees not far away heading towards them. Her expression immediately changed, and she couldn't help but cry out in alarm. Bees! When Murong Yixian saw the large swarm of bees, his expression also changed slightly. Soon after, he pulled her hand and ran. The swarm of thousands of bees wasn't something that they could chase away with just one or two pairs of hands. However, even if there were bees gathering nectar here, there shouldn't be so many bees swarming towards them all of a sudden. Feng Qingge cried out in pain. She only felt her hand being stung, and immediately after, 10 bees fell on her body, scaring her so much that she fiercely slapped herself. Go away. Quickly go away. Seeing that the bees surrounding them only stung her, Murong Yixian was stunned for a moment. He hurriedly took off his outer robe and threw it towards her, but before he could touch her, he heard her cry out in alarm. She fiercely slapped herself and jumped back a few steps to avoid the bees that were chasing after them. Big Brother Murong, Big Brother Murong, so many bees stung me, ah? She shouted as she ran, and the bees followed closely behind her. Especially when she passed through a place with more tourists in front of her, the tourists were so shocked that they covered their heads and squatted down to scream. only to find that the bees were only chasing after Feng Qinga. Did she touch something? Why did it attract so many bees? When she came here earlier, there was a fragrance on her body. Maybe she put on too much powder. After being stung by so many bees, his face is probably swollen like a pig's head. The surrounding wanderers, regardless of whether they were men or women, all looked on with folded arms as Feng Qinga ran all over the peach forest. Some of the women even looked at her with gloating eyes. Everyone watched as the swarm of bees chased after her relentlessly. Some of the faster ones even stung her face, causing her to scream. When they thought of the pain on their bodies couldn't help but tense up. Murong Gij, save me. At this moment, Murong Yixian was also a little stunned by this sudden scene. For a moment, he was also at a loss of what to do. Chapter 87. Everyone sucked in a breath and looked at the scene in disbelief. Murong Yixian came back to his senses and saw that the bees hovered above and buzzed for a while before finally leaving. He hurriedly came forward and pulled her out of the water, wrapping her in his jacket. "Qinga, how are you?" Murong Yixian was a little flustered. Seeing that her hands and face were swollen, he couldn't help but feel distressed and guilty. Before leaving, he promised Uncle Xiao that he would protect her, but now she was chased and stung by the bees and had nowhere to hide. She had jumped into the pool and was in a sorry state. Feng Qinga didn't say anything and only lowered her head, her body trembling slightly. Someone was targeting her. It was that fragrance. Who was it? Who was targeting her? Thinking about how she had been chased by the bees all over the peach forest and how she had jumped into the water to avoid them, she was so angry that her whole body trembled. Murong Yixian thought that she was shivering because she was drenched from head to toe, so he hurriedly picked her up and quickly headed in the direction of the carriage. Seeing Murong Yixian carrying Feng Qinga away, the surrounding tourists who were admiring the flowers began to whisper. No one noticed that on a peach tree not far away, a red figure was lying on the branches of a peach tree with a smile on her face. The next moment, her figure flashed like a flower fairy in the peach forest and instantly disappeared among the peach blossoms. Returning to the inner area, she took off her veil and happily hummed a little tune. Stepping on the pebbles under her feet, she lightly leaped. When she reached the inner area, she saw the old man sweeping the ground again. She stopped, glanced at him, and continued to step on the pebbles. When the red figure walked inside, the old man who was sweeping the ground raised his head and glanced at her. His eyes moved slightly, but his expression didn't change as he continued to sweep the ground with his head lowered. Lung Shuang came back at noon as if he was worried about leaving her alone in the Peach Blossom Cove. Therefore, he rushed back almost as soon as he passed on the news. Feng Jiu threw her a book of sword skills and told her to practice diligently. He moved some herbs and closed the door. Sometimes, he would close the door for an entire day and didn't even come out to eat. The days in the Peach Blossom Cove passed peacefully and comfortably. Feng Jiu was sometimes fiddling with medicinal herbs and sometimes cultivating. His days were busy but fulfilling. No one knew that her cultivation had reached the mid-stage of the Black Realm in less than a month after she arrived at the Peach Blossom Dock. Others had spent 10 years or even longer to reach this realm, but she had only used less than a month to raise her cultivation level by a few levels. At this moment, she didn't know that in the courtyard where Guan Shilin and Lung Hua were staying, a massacre had broken the peace that had been maintained. "Who are you people? Why did you barge into my compound?" Guan Shilin, who was only wearing a white undershirt, held a sword in his hand and stared straight at the men in black who had forced their way into the courtyard. The barrier in the courtyard was broken by these people, and because of this, they woke up the people who were sleeping soundly. Lung Hua hurriedly put on his clothes and came out. When he saw the men in black outside with long swords in their hands, he was shocked. After all, he had never faced such a situation before. At this moment, seeing the men in black surrounding them and pointing their bloodthirsty long swords at them, he was naturally shocked. A figure in a black robe walked out from behind with his hands behind his back. He stared at Guan Shilin with his malicious eyes and sneered sinisterly. You killed members of the Su family. Do you think you can escape? Chapter 88. So, it's the head of the Su family. Hearing the middle-aged man's words, Guan Shilin finally remembered who he was. Like the Guan family, the Su family could only be considered a mid-tier family in Yunhua City. However, the Su family and the Guan family did not have much interaction, and he had never seen the head of the Su family before. However, the only Su family in Yunhua City that could be ranked was the Su family. The head of the Su family said that she killed your people. Could it be that there's some misunderstanding? Even though he said that, his heart was racing fast. He guessed that this matter must have something to do with Xiao Jiao, but he could not admit to it now. As for the gray-robed elder, he was even more puzzled. He had never seen that person before, but he was able to break Xiao Jiao's array. He should not be a simple person. Thinking of this, he approached Lung Hua behind him and said in a low voice, "Find a chance to escape. Don't let them catch you." Although Lung Hua was a little flustered, he calmed down. During this period of time, his body had already recuperated, and his physique had also improved. However, he had never cultivated before, so there was no way he could fight with these people. If he stayed behind, he was afraid that he would only distract the young master. It was better for him to escape and find a way to inform his master and sister. Thinking of this, he retreated slightly. Misunderstanding? Ha ha! What a misunderstanding! The Su family patriarch laughed out loud, but his laughter suddenly stopped. He stared at him with a gloomy and bloodthirsty gaze. My son, my second brother, and two of my Su family's elders all died in the hands of that stinky girl. Do you think that a misunderstanding can be resolved? You're too naive. Indeed, Guan Shilin's heart skipped a beat. It was indeed Xiao Jiao who killed the Su family. However, when did this happen? Why didn't he know? Where's that brat? Hurry up and tell her to come out and die. Master Su shouted in a deep voice. He glanced around and saw that there was only one other person in the courtyard besides Guan Shilin and a young man with no cultivation. Su family head, we have an agreement. Once you catch her, don't kill her. This old man still wants to ask where she learned her array formation from. The gray-robed old man's voice was deep, as if he was targeting Fengjiu's array formation. I will definitely fulfill my promise to you. Right now, it's more important to find out where that damn girl is. With that, he gestured, capture them. Run. Guan Shilin shouted and pushed Lung Hua back, while he blocked the attack for him. Clang! Swish! The sound of swords clashing against each other rang out clearly in the night, and a sharp aura flashed past. Guan Shilin blocked the attacks of the black-robed men with his sword, trying to buy Lung Hua more time to escape. However, he wasn't Fengjiu after all. Although his battle strength had increased, he was obviously not a match for the people that the head of the Su family had carefully selected. Moreover, he was fighting against 10 people at the same time. In a short while, his white inner robe was stained with blood. However, it was still difficult for the black-robed men to take him down without killing him. Hence, the head of the Su family, who had been watching for a while, shouted in a deep voice, "You're all trash." He flew out, his palm containing a strong dark force aura. Bang! Uft. Chapter 89. At this moment, a black-clothed guard quickly walked to his side. Master, we've searched inside and out, but we didn't find anyone else. Only that young man escaped to the back, but 2 of our brothers have already gone after him. At the same time, Lung Hua, who had escaped from the back door, was blocked by 2 black-clothed guards. When the 2 black-clothed guards saw that Lung Hua was just an ordinary person with no cultivation base, they didn't think much of him. You can't escape. Be a good boy and give yourself up. As he spoke, one of the black-clothed guards leaned forward and grabbed his wrist, intending to drag him back to the front. However, just as he was about to grab the young man's hand was grabbed instead. Caught off guard, he was pulled and pushed, crashing into another black-clothed guard. What the hell are you doing? The other guard was hit on the head and couldn't help but curse angrily. He pushed the man away, and when he saw the young man taking the opportunity to escape, he was furious. He turned the sharp sword in his hand, and a sword aura flew out. "You're courting death." "Ah!" Lung Hua cried out in pain and staggered. He felt a burning pain on his back, and a warm liquid flowed down his back, causing his face to turn pale. However, he didn't stop and continued to run forward. Suddenly, a black figure leaped up and easily overtook him to block his path. "Run? Why aren't you running? If I can't even catch you, won't I become a joke when I return?" The black-clothed guard sneered and attacked again with his sword, aiming to stab the young man's left leg. However, the young man who was still in front of him flashed and dodged his attack. Before he could even react, the young man's hand that was holding the sword was grabbed by the young man's hand and slashed toward his neck. Hiss! The black-clothed guard only had time to gasp in disbelief before he saw the sword in the young man's hand slash towards his neck. It was so fast that the other guard couldn't stop it in time. Bang! There was a heavy thud. The black-clothed guard fell to the ground, his eyes filled with unwillingness. Blood gushed out from the cut on his throat, quickly dyeing the ground red. Lung Hua seemed to be frightened by his own instinctive reaction. He had never cultivated before and had only learned Tai Chi from his master. During this period of time, he had been practicing Tai Chi in the morning and in the evening. The technique of Tai Chi was deeply ingrained in his bones. When danger came, he instinctively used Tai Chi to protect himself. He knew that if he didn't kill the other black-clothed man, he wouldn't be able to escape. Thus, he gave up on running away and turned to look at the black-clothed guard who had a stunned expression. He slowly squatted down and raised his hands slightly as he chanted the Tai Chi incantation in his heart. Following the direction of his head, he loosened his shoulders and restrained the chi under his ribs to support his body. What the hell? When the black-clothed guard saw that his companion had been killed, the brat actually stopped running away and even began to use soft fist techniques. He immediately raised his sword and attacked. As for the front, speak. Where did that damn girl hide? He stomped on Guan Shilin's chest, causing blood to flow from his mouth again. He grunted and didn't speak, only glaring angrily at the guard. Take him back. I don't believe that I can't pry open his mouth. Chapter 90. At this moment, a guard in black hurriedly ran over. "Family head, 2 of our brothers have been killed. That young man escaped." "What? He was killed by someone without any cultivation?" His voice was slightly raised and filled with anger as he strode towards the back door. As expected, he saw the 2 guards lying motionless on the ground. One had his neck slit, while the other had his chest pierced by a sword. Seeing this, his face darkened as he clenched his fists. "Very good. I didn't think that a kid with no cultivation would have the ability to kill my men." The old man who followed behind stroked his beard thoughtfully. He clearly had no cultivation, but he could kill people with cultivation. Furthermore, there was even an array master here. It seemed like that girl had secrets on her. Thinking of this, a ray of light flashed across his narrowed eyes. What's the relationship between the captured man and the girl? The old man asked Family Head Su. Hearing this, Family Head Su turned around and said, "That man was a disciple of the Guan family in Yinhua City. However, I heard that he died in Jufu Forest a while ago. I'm guessing that the girl saved him. The 2 of them had a good relationship and seemed to call each other brother and sister. So if she knew that the man was captured, she would definitely appear?" "Yes." Patriarch Su nodded his head. Only then did his expression soften. "It's good that the young man has escaped. If he escapes, he will find that woman and tell her that he has been captured. I don't believe that she won't come when Guan Shilin is in my hands." The old man frowned and asked in a low voice, "If the Guan family knew that he was in your hands, would they do anything?" Why would they? This Guan Shilin was abandoned by the Guan family. His fiancée was even taken away by his cousin. Why would someone abandoned by the family care about his life? That's good. Before that girl is lured out, he can't die or cause any trouble, the old man said in a low voice. Hearing this, Family Head Su's heart skipped a beat. He looked at the old man suspiciously. Senior, you're already an array master. Why would you be interested in a little girl's array? The old man glanced at him, and his face darkened. Patriarch, Su shouldn't be curious about this old man's affairs. You should know that the more people know, the faster they will die. Family head, Su didn't dare to ask any more questions. After all, the old man's status wasn't someone he could offend. On the other side, Lung Hua, who had escaped, hid in an alley and gasped for breath. His body was covered in blood. Some of it was his, and some of it was the guard he had killed. This was the first time he had killed someone. Previously, the situation was critical, and he did not think much about it. However, at this moment, his body was trembling slightly with lingering fear. He was unable to calm down. After hiding in the alley for a while, he saw that there was no movement in the surroundings. Those people didn't chase after him. He gritted his teeth and supported himself against the wall to get to his feet. Taking advantage of the night, he went to Peach Blossom Cove. He knew that his master's other identity was the ghost doctor. He also had connections with the black market, but he couldn't go to the black market now. In the past, it was his sister who went to the black market. Not to mention that those people didn't know him. Even if he did go, he was afraid that things would get out of hand and his master's identity would be exposed. Chapter 91. Dawn was about to break, but the sky was still gray. The few black guards who were guarding the forest were chatting as they patrolled the mountain. When they came to the front, they saw a figure stumbling towards them. They looked at each other and quickly stepped forward and shouted, "Who is it?" Lung Hua forced his heavy body to walk forward step by step. His body swayed slightly as he fell and got up again. The wound on his back seemed to have coagulated. He could no longer feel it. His feet were very heavy, and every step was very strenuous. His vision gradually blurred. When he saw the person patrolling the night, his feet swayed and he fell again. He stretched out his hand and opened his dry throat. Take me to see Lung Shuang. She is my sister." His voice was very weak, but the black guard still heard him clearly. Lung Shuang's little brother? A trace of surprise flashed through their eyes. One of them went forward to check the wound, and the other quickly rushed inside. Whether it was true or not, they had to inform Lung Shuang first. "Who did you say it was? My little brother?" Lung Shuang, who heard the ring of the array, came out to check. When he heard the black guard captain's words, his heart jumped. "Where is he now? Where is he? Take me to see him." Ahua should be in the courtyard with the young master. Why would he be here? Could it be that something had happened? When Lung Shuang hurried over and saw Lung Hua covered in blood, his face changed greatly. His light blue clothes were stained with blood. His heart trembled. "Ahua," she called out in a trembling voice. She wanted to go forward and support him, but she didn't know how to do it. She could only shout, "Quick, take him in." The black guard captain and the other black guard who were supporting Lung Hua followed behind Lung Shuang. When they arrived at the Peach Array, the two thought that maybe this time they could go in and take a look. Unexpectedly, Lung Shuang stopped in front of them. "Give him to me." She stepped forward and carefully supported Lung Hua from the hands of the two black guards. She took Lung Hua and walked step by step into the Peach Array. Soon, the two figures disappeared into the Peach Array. What's the mystery behind it? We've been guarding here for almost a month, but we haven't even been able to go inside. Thinking about it, I really can't accept it. The black guard muttered softly. He was very curious about that place, especially about the person who lived there. The leader of the black guards looked inside thoughtfully. He then looked at the black guard and said in a deep voice, "You have been a black guard for a long time. You should know our rules. Don't ask about things you shouldn't know, and don't be curious. Otherwise, it won't do you any good." "Yes." After being reprimanded by the captain, the black guard hurriedly responded and lowered his head. As for inside, Lung Shuang brought the unconscious Lung Hua to his room. He first checked his wounds and bandaged them. Then, he quickly went to Fengjiu's room and knocked on the door. "Master, master." Her voice was a little anxious and panicky. Fengjiu, who was sleeping soundly in the room, opened his eyes when he heard the sound. He put on a coat and opened the door. "What's wrong?" Her voice was still sleepy, but her eyes were no longer sleepy. She knew that if it wasn't something urgent, Lung Shuang wouldn't knock on the door before dawn. Master, Ahua is here. His body is covered in blood, and he's unconscious. I'm afraid something happened to the young master. Chapter 92. Lung Shuang placed him in his room. As soon as they entered, Fengjiu smelled the thick scent of blood in the air. She came to the bedside and saw that Lung Hua's upper garment had been taken off. He was half lying on his stomach, his pale face slightly turned to the side. Seeing the long sword mark on his back, Fengjiu's eyes darkened. She reached out to check his pulse. Lung Shuang, who was next to her, couldn't hide the worry in his eyes. He said, Ahua's back injury is more serious. The wounds on the front of his body are only scratches. When I helped him in, the blood on his wounds had already coagulated. I couldn't wake him up no matter what. After Fengjiu checked his pulse, her eyes fell on his feet. She saw that his boots hadn't been taken off, but his toes were bleeding and had a few small holes. Her hand reached into her sleeve, and 2 fingers took out a brown pill and stuffed it into Lung Hua's mouth. She then handed a bottle of medicine to Lung Shuang. She said, take off his boots and clean the wounds on his feet. Yes. Lung Shuang hurriedly took the medicine she handed over. She carefully took off Lung Hua's boots. When she saw the scraped skin and bleeding feet, she felt her eyes heat up. She couldn't stop the tears from falling. Seeing this, Fengjiu slowly said, the wounds on his back are not shallow. Fortunately, his blood has coagulated. Otherwise, the blood would have dried up in 8 hours. As for the wounds on his feet, they are only superficial wounds. After applying medicine, they will be fine in 2 days. There won't be any danger. She was more worried about her cheap brother. Lung Hua was unconscious. She didn't know what had happened. After hearing her words, Lung Shuang's worried heart finally relaxed. When she finished bandaging her brother's wounds, she found that her master was no longer in the room. She got up and walked out. Seeing her standing in the courtyard, she asked, Master, do you want me to go back and ask around? Fengjiu shook his head. No need. Let's wait for Lung Hua to wake up. No one knows better than him what happened last night. Master, don't worry. Young master will be fine. Okay. She nodded and said, let me know when Lung Hua wakes up. Then she walked back into the room. After entering the room, she flashed into the space. With a flip of her hand, a pill appeared in her palm. This was a pill that could help her increase her Xianqi cultivation. However, this was her first time developing it, so she didn't know how strong this pill would be. Would there be other reactions? As a result, she had never consumed it even though it had been developed. The little fire phoenix in the space saw her staring at the pill in her hand, not knowing what she was thinking. She walked up to her with her short legs and asked in a soft and curious voice, what's wrong? I want to reach the peak of the Black Realm as a martial master, she said in a low voice as she held the pill in her hand. Little Fire Phoenix's eyes widened when he heard this. You're crazy. You're only at the 3rd level of the middle stage of the Black Realm as a martial master. The higher your cultivation, the more you can advance. If you want to reach the peak of the Black Realm, it will take you at least half a year, even with this spiritual house of space. If you have an accident now, your cultivation will be destroyed. If it's serious, you won't even be able to keep your life. Seeing that she didn't respond at all and was staring at the pill in her hand, he hurriedly said, there's more. Profound energy and martial skills are indispensable. If you keep raising your profound energy, if you can't comprehend the essence of your martial skills, it's useless even if you have profound energy cultivation. Do you know that? Guan Shilin is in danger. Chapter 93. Even so, you can't gamble with your life. The little fire phoenix glared at her, his chubby cheeks puffed up in anger. If something happens to you during your breakthrough, who's going to save him? Even though I can defeat a peak martial master with my current level of cultivation, I'm worried that if the opponent is stronger than me, it'll be an irreversible situation. She paused for a moment, deep in thought. Furthermore, I've set up a formation in the courtyard. Only a formation master can break it. So even if Lung Hua hasn't woken up and told me everything, I know that this isn't a simple matter. The enemy I'm about to face is very powerful. All right, all right. You don't have to take that medicine. If you really can't handle it, I'll help you at most. Fengjiu's gaze fell on the little boy. He didn't hide his suspicions. Little guy, even though you're the ancient fire phoenix, you're still a child. Furthermore, you look like a 3-year-old human child. If even I can't handle it, what can you do? All right. She just felt that this chubby little boy with short arms and legs didn't have much fighting power. After all, he wasn't an adult yet, was he? If she really met a strong opponent that even she couldn't handle, she didn't believe that he would be able to help her. However, the little fire phoenix wasn't happy when he heard this. He crossed his arms in front of his chest and sat down on the ground. He glared at her angrily. Don't look down on me. I'm not as useless as a 3-year-old human child. I'm very strong. He emphasized again, even though Fengjiu didn't take his words seriously. Master was awake. Lung Shuang's voice came from outside. Fengjiu looked at the pill in his hand. He thought for a moment, then put it away. He said, "Be good and stay here to cultivate." Then he flashed out of the space. When he opened the door, he saw Lung Shuang's face full of joy. Master was awake. Okay. She nodded and walked towards Lung Shuang's room. When she entered the room, she saw that Lung Hua had already opened his eyes. When he saw her, he wanted to get up, but she stopped him. You're injured. Just lie down. Master, young master has been captured. His voice was still very weak, but it was much better than before. Do you know who those people are? She thought to herself. It would be fine if they were only captured, as long as they weren't killed. That middle-aged man said that he's from the Su family. He said that Master killed his son, second brother, and 2 elders. He wants to settle the score with Master. Upon hearing this, Lung Shuang was slightly surprised. Master killed someone? How could this be? Master's strength could only be considered as an embroidered pillow at best. How could he possibly kill an elder of the clan? When Fengjiu heard this, his eyes flashed. He suddenly understood. So it was the Su family. The Su family's second master and the others were all killed by her. So how did they know that she was the one who killed them? Could it be that they found her portrait on the black market and guessed it? Did they bring someone who knows how to set up arrays? How did you manage to escape from there? Tell me everything in detail. The Su family head brought a gray-robed elder over. He was the one who broke the array. As for me... Chapter 94. At that time, I reacted instinctively. If Master had not taught me the Tai Chi fist, I would have died under their swords. Thinking of this, he felt a sense of lingering fear. After all, in the past, he had always been protected by his sister. His body was weak, and he was bettered all year round. He would never have dared to imagine what would have happened that night. However, after that night, a strong idea formed in his heart. I want to cultivate too. Even if I can't compare to his sister, I want to cultivate. This way, he won't have to be protected by anyone. Furthermore, if anything happens, he can protect them. After hearing his words, Lung Shuang couldn't help but look at her master. Her heart was filled with disbelief. Her master's Tai Chi fist could actually defeat the enemy? She had always thought that her master's Tai Chi fist was just a warm-up exercise. She never thought that it would be her Tai Chi fist that saved Ahua's life. After hearing his words, she nodded and said, "Focus on recuperating. Don't think about anything else." She then turned and walked out. Lung Shuang followed her out. Seeing her standing in the courtyard, she asked, "Master, what should we do next? I'm going back for a while. You take care of things here." "Master, you want to save the young master alone?" She was startled. She then asked worriedly, "Even the young master is no match for those people. If you go, won't you walk right into their trap?" She didn't say those words out loud. From her point of view, even if her master's Tai Chi fist was very skillful, she would never be a match for the clan head. Furthermore, she was only one person while the other party was an entire clan. Not to mention the disparity in their strength, the difference in their numbers was too great. How could she send her to her death? That's not something you should worry about. Just do what I've asked you to do. She turned and returned to her room. She changed into men's clothes and put on the devil's snare flower golden mask. Her entire aura seemed to have changed. It was a sharp and languid aura. It was as dangerous and mysterious as the king of the night. The aura that she had been holding back and hiding was released at this moment. It was impossible to ignore. She left the courtyard and rushed out of the forest. Her profound energy surged, and her footsteps changed strangely. She was as fast as a ghost and disappeared without a trace. In the Sioux family dungeon. Whoosh. Pa. Yes. The whipping sounds were accompanied by whooshing sounds, as the whips were accompanied by muffled groans. The thick stench of blood filled the dark and damp dungeon. On the wooden cross, Guanxilin was tied up with wounds all over his body. The whip marks on his body were stacked on top of each other. Blood mixed with sweat dripped down his tattered clothes. Ever since he was captured, he had been whipped nonstop. He was so exhausted that he couldn't even scream. It was as if his entire body didn't belong to him. He was in so much pain that he couldn't feel anything. He couldn't even lift his head. However, the person wielding the whip didn't show any mercy. He cursed and lashed out at him. How dare you kill my son? How dare you kill my second brother? Who asked you to kill two of my elders? Who asked you to become enemies with my Sioux clan? When the guard at the side saw that Guanxilin was on the verge of death and had fainted, he couldn't help but cautiously say, "Family head, he has fainted." Chapter 95. The guard's heart trembled when he heard this, but he still hurriedly agreed. He walked to the back and took the red-hot soldering iron, carefully handing it to the family head. "I'd like to see how hard your bones are," family head Sue said in a low voice. The soldering iron in his hand was about to brand Guanxilin's body. The red-hot soldering iron was still giving off steam, and even the guard at the side did not dare to look at it. "Stop!" A voice filled with pressure rang out, causing the Sioux family head who was about to place the branding iron to stop. He frowned slightly and looked at the person who had come. The gray-robed old man walked in and smelled the stench of blood in the dungeon, as well as the unconscious Guanxilin. He frowned and his face darkened as he stared at the Sioux family head with an unhappy expression. "This person is still useful. If you kill him, who else am I going to look for if that girl doesn't come?" Hearing this, family head Sue did not say anything. He only handed the soldering iron to the guard at the side. "Senior, don't worry. That brat will definitely come." Even if she didn't come, he would flip the entire Yunus city upside down to find her. Night fell, but the Sioux residence was still as bright as day. There were teams of guards patrolling inside and outside, setting up an inescapable net just to catch the prey that might come tonight. Fengjiu, who had been hiding in the dark and observing for an entire day, suddenly saw a familiar black figure. She frowned, and her red figure flashed, flying towards that figure. Lung Shuang was about to jump onto the wall of the Sioux residence when suddenly a hand clasped her shoulder and the other covered her mouth, pulling her into a dark corner. She was about to fight back when she heard a familiar voice in a low voice. "It's me." As she spoke, Fengjiu released her hand. She frowned and looked at her. "Didn't I ask you to look after the Peach Blossom Cove? Why are you here?" "Master?" Lung Shuang's eyes lit up. "I was worried about you, so I followed you." She was still a little worried about saving someone herself, so after instructing Ahua to take care of herself, she followed along. "Nonsense." Her voice was low. "If I hadn't stopped you, you would have ruined my plans tonight." Lung Shuang lowered his head and said, "I'm sorry, Master. Let's go back now." Hearing this, she suddenly raised her head and stubbornly shook it. "I'm not going back. I want to help Master save young Master. If you go in, you might just die." She looked at her firmly. "Lung Shuang's life is Master's. Even if I die, Lung Shuang will not let Master take the risk alone." Hearing this, Fengjiu looked at her deeply. After a long time, he looked away. "Since you're not afraid of death, then follow me." "Yes." She was overjoyed and her eyes lit up. Fengjiu took her and quietly leaped onto the wall behind the door. Hiding in the dark, she could see at a glance that the outer circle of the Sioux residence had been set up with an array formation. If she wanted to enter, she had to go through that array formation. "There's a formation inside. Follow me closely and don't make a single mistake." With that, He jumped down and led Lung Shuang into the formation. Inside the Su residence, in a courtyard, Master Su sipped his tea and asked worriedly, "Senior, can that formation really trap people? Could it be that we don't even know she's here? It can't be." Chapter 96. However, at this time, the two of them didn't know that the person they were talking about had already walked out of the array and scathed. As soon as they walked out of the array, they encountered a night patrol. Before Lung Shuang could dodge, Feng Jiu pulled him to the other side. Their figures flashed by as fast as lightning, so the night patrol didn't notice them at all. After standing still, Lung Shuang was slightly stunned. He looked at his master with disbelief in his eyes. Even if he practiced for another 10 years, he still wouldn't be able to match that kind of movement. "Let's go," Feng Jiu whispered and led him to the other side. Along the way, although they met the Su family's night patrol, the two of them avoided them and didn't disturb them. Lung Shuang finally understood the meaning of his master's words. The outer circle was an array, but the inner circle was full of night patrol. If she had come in alone, she would have been discovered long ago. "Wait here." After Feng Jiu said this, he quietly rushed out and grabbed the last night patrol guard, covering his mouth, and pulled him into a dark corner. After the night patrol guard was far away, Feng Jiu asked in a low voice, "Where is Guan Shilin?" The guard's eyes widened in horror, and there was a pleading look in his eyes. He pointed in a direction and kicked his feet, trying to escape. Seeing this, Feng Jiu's gaze turned cold. She broke his neck with one hand, dragged him to a dark corner, and threw him there. The two of them left again and searched in that direction. They avoided the night patrol guards when they met them. Feng Jiu didn't stop until they came to a rockery inside. Lung Shuang looked at her questioningly, not understanding why she suddenly stopped. Feng Jiu's eyes swept over everything in front of her. She saw 4 guards guarding a rockery in the distance. In addition, there were many people hiding in the dark. She was deep in thought. She knew that she couldn't get rid of the people in the open and in the dark in an instant, so she could only use medicine. With a flip of her hand, she took out a medicine bottle from her space. She quietly snuck to the windy area and sprinkled the medicine in her hand with the help of the night wind. Then, she waited quietly. Only when all the people in the dark and in the open had collapsed did she signal Lung Shuang to come out. "You guard here. I'll go in and take a look." As soon as he finished speaking, he opened the stone door and walked in. As soon as she entered, a dark and damp smell hit her in the face. The thick smell of blood made her frown, especially when she saw the badly mutilated person tied to the wooden stake. Her heart tightened, and a murderous aura overflowed from her body. "Brother," she called out to him in a low voice, but he was already unconscious. Seeing this, she quickly stuffed a pill into his mouth, cut the rope, untied him, and brought him out. "I'll lure them away. You find a chance to bring him out first." Lung Shuang, who was supporting Guan Shilin, nodded and said worriedly, "Master, be careful." "Amen, let's go." She responded and watched them go to the other side. Only then did her gaze fall on the main courtyard of the inner residence. Her eyes were filled with a cold, murderous aura, and she spoke in a low voice. "I'll let you know what kind of people you can't mess with. Fire, fire, put out the fire." Su family head and the old man who were still talking in the courtyard heard the sound of the fire being put out outside. They immediately stood up. "What's going on?" A guard rushed in with a hurried expression. "Family head, it's not good. There are many places in the residence on fire. The fire is very fierce, and it's going to spread here." Chapter 97. However, when they arrived outside, the Su family head almost fainted when he saw the situation. The Su family residence was large, and there were at least 100 guards. However, all of them were lying on the ground, and no one knew if they were dead or alive. Only 2 elders and 4 martial master captains were left. On top of the wall, a red figure looked down from above. Her red robes fluttered in the night wind, and the golden devil's snare mask looked mysterious and strange under the light of the flames. However, when he saw the golden devil's snare mask and the red robes, the Sioux family head paled. You're the ghost doctor. The ghost doctor. He was a mysterious and awe-inspiring person. No one knew if he was a man or a woman, but they knew that he always wore a flamboyant red robe and a golden mask with a blooming dachira flower on it. All the big families in Yinhuas City wanted to meet him, but they were rejected. The king of the country of Glorious Sun wanted to meet him, but he was also rejected. The black market forces in various countries respected him and treated him as an important guest. It was rumored that he had medical skills that could bring the dead back to life. It was rumored that a bottle of medicine from him could increase a cultivator's power instantly. It was rumored that there were many rumors, but this person who was only a legend to them had actually come to the Sioux clan today. Moreover, he had appeared here in such a manner. How could he not feel a chill in his heart? She was someone that even the black market forces wanted to protect. If that force found out, the Sioux family would have no place in Yinhuas City. However, at the same time that his heart trembled, a crazy thought also floated in his mind. Kill her. As long as she was dead, the black market forces would not know that he had touched her. As long as she was dead, the Sioux family would not have to worry about the black market forces taking revenge on them. Kill her. Kill her. He suddenly came back to his senses and shouted loudly. His finger pointed at the red figure standing high up in the sky, and his voice was sinister and filled with madness and viciousness. You must not let her leave this place alive. The gray-robed elder frowned and glanced at the Sioux family head. When his gaze landed on the red figure, his eyes were filled with excitement and anticipation. No, I want her alive. The two elders quickly came to the patriarch's side. Their robes were slightly burned by the fire. Because they had escaped from the fire, their hair was messy and their faces were stained. At this moment, they looked somewhat miserable. Master, there's a bewitching pill in the fire. Everyone below the level of a martial master has been drugged. Kill her. The head of the Sioux clan spoke word by word in a gloomy voice. He ordered the 4 martial masters to kill the red figure together. At the same time, he swept his gaze towards the gray-robed old man beside him and questioned him angrily. Didn't you say that she can't walk out of your formation? Didn't you say that you would know once she came in? She set fire to my Sioux residence's 100-year-old foundation. Today, if I don't make her head fall to the ground and spill her blood over the Sioux residence, I swear I won't rest. Pooh! As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood and was sent flying by the palm strike. He crashed heavily into the corner of the wall and fell into the flames. Before he could even cry out, he heard a loud boom and the entire wall collapsed, burying the patriarch of the Sioux family. Chapter 98. The 2 elders cried out in alarm. The 4 captains of the martial masters were also shocked. They looked at the old man in gray who had suddenly attacked. The old man narrowed his eyes. His whole body was overflowing with a bloodthirsty aura. His disdainful and cold voice slowly came out of his mouth. Who do you think you are? How dare you question me? His malicious gaze swept over the 2 elders beside him. Their hearts trembled, and they involuntarily took 2 steps back. One palm killed the family leader who was at the peak of the martial master level. With just 1 palm, their patriarch didn't even have the chance to stand up and died in his hands. In the raging fire under the pile of rocks, the family leader of the Sioux family, who had been established for hundreds of years, died in such a sullen and unexpected way. Fengjiu, who was standing on the high ground, raised his eyebrows under his mask. A trace of surprise flashed through his eyes. Weren't these 2 in cahoots? They actually killed the family leader of the Sioux family? Killed with 1 palm. Her gaze fell on the old man in gray. She saw a visible dark force aura condensing in his palm. A great martial master. This old man in gray was a great martial master who was above the martial master level. Well, to be able to kill a peak martial master with 1 palm, his strength was naturally much higher than the family leader of the Sioux family. But a great martial master. Right now, she should have no problem dealing with the family leader of the Sioux family. but to deal with a great martial master who seemed to be above the initial stage of the Black Realm. It was obvious that she was no match for him, even if there were two of her. Go, catch her for me. Remember, I want her alive. The gray-robed elder stood there without moving. His hands were folded in his sleeves as he quietly stood below. His eyes were filled with excitement and anticipation as he looked at the bewitching and dazzling red figure. His gaze was so strange that it made one's hair stand on end. Yes, yes. Whether it was the two elders or the four captains of the martial masters, even if they saw the family leader killed, they would not dare to avenge him. They knew that the old man's strength was far above theirs. If they did not obey, they would be the next to die. Seeing the people surrounding her, her eyes flashed. She took out a dagger and held it in a reverse grip. Then, she leaped and landed on a roof not far away. Those people chased after her. They didn't have any weapons in their hands, as if they were afraid of the old man and didn't dare to use their weapons against her. However, they didn't know that this would only give her an easier chance to kill them. Where do you think you're going? An elder shouted and extended his hand to grab Fengjiu's shoulder. His surging, profound energy aura, as well as the pressure of a martial master, attacked at this moment. Originally, he wanted to shock her so that he could capture her, but unexpectedly, his hand was grabbed and twisted behind his back. Her ghost-like movements, as well as her crafty and strange methods, made it impossible for him to avoid falling into her hands. Before he could dodge, a cold dagger was already pressed against his neck. When the others saw this, their hearts froze. Some were shocked, and some were in disbelief. They were well aware of the third elder's power, but now, she had managed to hold him back so easily. He even fell into her hands, and his life and death were in her hands. Don't kill me. The third elder was a little frightened. He couldn't believe it. In the blink of an eye, the scene that he had imagined had happened, and he was the one who was at a disadvantage. It's too late. Chapter 99. Third Brother. Second Elder exclaimed in a trembling voice. Seeing Third Elder, who was as close as a brother, slit his throat, the fresh blood that gushed out pierced his heart and burned his eyes. He clenched his fists tightly and his knuckles cracked. The hatred in his heart boiled in his chest like boiling lava that was about to burst out of his chest. The patriarch was dead, and he was the only one left out of the four elders. The Su family was also burning in flames, and without any accidents, it would eventually turn into ruins. The Su family had declined, and all of this was caused by the person in front of him. He wanted to kill her. Only by killing her could he vent his anger. Only by killing her could he pay tribute to the 134 people in the Su family. Swoosh! A cold light flashed, and a long sword flashed from his sleeve. The sharp tip of the sword pointed diagonally to the ground. His gloomy and murderous gaze stared fixedly at the red figure. His entire body's profound energy aura gathered together with his murderous aura as it diffused out. He had stimulated all of his strength in order to fight to the death. The moment they saw that the third elder had been killed, the four captains' bodies tensed up. They instinctively wanted to run away. However, just as they were about to run, several silver needles shot out and pierced the back of their necks. The four of them only let out a muffled groan. Their bodies stiffened, and they fell powerlessly into the fire. Hiss! Ah! Blood-curdling screams rang out from the fire. The four of them rolled in the fire and struggled to stand up and escape. However, in the end, they were still mercilessly swallowed by the fire. This old man swears in the name of the Su family's elders. Even if I die, I will drag you down with me. The second elder's gloomy and ghastly voice sounded out. Profound energy surged as the tip of his sword shot out a shocking sword aura. That sword aura that was visible to the naked was like a venomous snake that assaulted her with a force that was too late to cover her ears. Its speed was swift. The sword move was ruthless, and it carried a ruthless determination to kill her. Seeing this, Fengjiu did not dare to be careless. He poured profound energy into the dagger in his hand, and their auras counteracted each other. When the blade and sword clashed, the sound of clashing metal rang out from time to time. A sharp air current also filled the air between the two, whistling loudly. Below, the gray-robed old man's gaze could not help but darken when he saw the second elder's ruthless and fatal attacks. He stared at the two people above with displeasure. That woman was of great use to him, and he couldn't let her die just like that. However, when they saw that the woman was able to withstand so many attacks from the second elder without suffering any injuries, they couldn't help but look at her with some surprise. After all, as far as he was concerned, since she had dabbled in formations and medicine, she would definitely not be able to take care of both her battle prowess and cultivation. However, he did not expect that she would bring him surprises again and again. That's right, it was an accident. He originally thought that she wouldn't be able to break the array he had set up. As long as she entered the array, she would definitely be trapped. However, she was able to calmly walk out of the array without alerting him. It was obvious that her cultivation in array formations was much higher than he had imagined. Moreover, he was even more certain that on her body, there must be some ancient books on array formations that he had never studied before. Thinking of this, his eyes suddenly brightened. Ancient records of formations. He didn't expect to encounter such a good thing in a small ninth-grade country. Since he had encountered it, he definitely wouldn't let it go. Together with this woman, he wanted her as well. Chapter 100. A cry of pain was heard as the long sword in second elder's hand was sent flying by a kick. The long sword streaked across the air and fell into the flames below. Because he had been kicked, the web between his thumb and forefinger felt numb, as if the bones in his wrist had been broken. He was in so much pain that he could not lift his hand and could only hang limply. Trembling slightly, he looked at the red figure in front of him with a pale face. That figure looked even more dazzling against the backdrop of the flames below. Her ink-black hair was blown by the night breeze, as if a pair of hands were gently caressing her hair in the night sky. A bewitching datura flower bloomed on her golden mask, making her look even more mysterious and strange. Her body was filled with a bloodthirsty and austere aura. It was very strong, so strong that it made him tremble with fear. That's right. If the other party was an ordinary person, the few elders would not have fallen into her hands one by one. Even a master had lost the entire Sioux family because of her. Thinking of this, he gritted his teeth and sent the profound energy in his body into his dantian. In an instant, his entire body was like a balloon that had been filled with air as it rapidly swelled up. Even the robes on his body were torn apart by the swelling, revealing his originally emaciated body. However, at this moment, that emaciated body was rapidly swelling up. The explosion of the airflow caused all the veins under his skin to float up. They were clearly visible and looked as if they were about to explode at any time. I've said it before, even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. Second elder shouted crazily. His head of grayish-white hair fluttered chaotically in the airflow around his body. He spread his arms wide and madly rushed towards Fungio in front of him. That speed was twice as fast as when he had exchanged blows with Fungio previously. When the gray-robed elder below saw that second elder was about to self-destruct to take the woman down with him, his expression changed greatly. He shouted in a flustered and exasperated manner, "Damn it! I said I want her alive. Alive!" Stomping his feet on the ground, the gray figure instantly shot up. His speed was actually several times faster than the second elder, who was about to explode and die from the explosion of his profound energy. Fungio had been on guard against the second elder ever since he revealed a crazed expression. So when she saw him detonate his profound energy with the intention of perishing together with her, she was shocked. She never thought that the second elder would actually go to such an extent for the sake of the Sioux family. Immediately, she quickly retreated, step by step, trying to escape as quickly as possible. After all, the self-destruction of a peak martial master was no joke. She didn't want to accidentally lose her life. However, just as she was retreating, a gray figure shot toward her like a ghost. She could not even see his figure clearly. All she saw was the gray-robed figure kicking the second elder, who was charging toward her into the sky. I can't accept this. Bang. Boom. The second elder's resentful voice reverberated in the night sky. Before his voice even landed, there was a loud explosion. The second elder's body exploded in midair with a loud bang. The soaring flames and the loud explosion broke the silence of the night. Almost everyone in US City was awakened in that instant. Chapter 101. Don't be afraid. I'll treat you well. When Fengjiu heard these words coming from the gray-robed old man's mouth, she only felt a wave of disgust as goosebumps appeared all over her body. Even the corners of her mouth couldn't help but twitch, especially when this old man was actually using a pair of excited and strange eyes to stare at her. That kind of disgust could be imagined. She cast a glance at him and rubbed the goosebumps on her arms with both hands as she bluntly said, "Old thing, when you're talking, why don't you take a mirror and look at your old face that's like a shriveled orange? You're already a person with one foot in the coffin, yet you're still so shameless." Those mocking words caused the gray-robed old man's gaze to darken. Even the smile on his face disappeared as he stared at her with a malicious aura emitting from his entire body. "This old man took you in as a cultivation vessel because I think highly of you." Cultivation vessel? Fengjiu let out a strange cry as she impolitely sized him up from bottom to top. She then ridiculed, "I couldn't tell that an old thing like you was also a pervert, but you're already so old. Can you still use that plaything?" Impudent. He flew into a rage out of humiliation as his chest heaved up and down due to his anger. His eyes widened as he glared at her. In the next moment, the gray-robed figure swept out as fast as lightning as his withered hand turned into a claw and grabbed towards Fengjiu. Fengjiu's expression instantly changed as a fierce aura shot out. She didn't avoid it, but met it head-on. Her half-narrowed eyes carried a ruthless and bloodthirsty aura as her strange footwork moved her figure. The dagger in her hand turned as she stabbed towards the gray-robed old man with profound energy. "Insignificant skill," the gray-robed old man sneered. With a flip of his hand, he easily dodged Fengjiu's attack. When he blocked her dagger with one hand, he used the other hand to grab her. Fengjiu's hand was clasped by the gray-robed old man, so she immediately borrowed the strength of the force and jumped down. As she escaped from the old man's tightly clasped fingers, she raised her leg to block the attack. Only the sound of her leg carrying the aura of profound energy sweeping through the air could be heard. The old man's calf was kicked when he wasn't paying attention. His knee bent, and when he squatted down, he quickly jumped back and retreated away from Fengjiu's side. Fengjiu didn't stop and attacked again. She knew that the explosion of the second elder's body in the air had already alerted the various forces in Yunhua City. Those people would definitely rush over here. And now, she had to deal with this old man before those people arrived. Hiss! As soon as the old man regained his balance, he saw a cold dagger coming at his neck. He was so shocked that he leaned back and raised his leg to kick. Unexpectedly, the woman suddenly retreated. The dagger that was originally aimed at his neck turned and stabbed into the calf that he kicked. The force of the ruthless stab and the force of the kick almost collided with each other, piercing through his leg. He could only hear the sound of the sharp blade piercing through his flesh. The pain in his spine caused all the strength in his body to burst out. A strong Wu Zone aura suddenly shot out from his body. The vigorous, profound energy that surged out violently sent Fengjiu flying. Fengjiu, who was thrown a few meters away, felt a sharp pain in her chest. She spat out a mouthful of blood from her heart. Her heart meridian was damaged, causing her entire aura to become weak. Seeing the old man pull out the dagger and throw it into the flames and walk toward her step by step, she narrowed her eyes. She endured the pain in her heart and stood up, facing the wind. She raised her hand and formed a complicated and ancient seal with the blood at the corner of her mouth. At this moment, her cold voice seemed to come from ancient times, melodious and mysterious. With my blood, I break your shackles. Chapter 102. As her voice fell, a ray of light shot out from her hands. It was like a blood-red light that shot up into the sky in an instant. It was also like a dazzling scarlet flame that soared up and lit up the entire night sky. Hiss! A phoenix cry that seemed to have come from ancient times rang out in the night sky. The powerful aura in the voice formed a visible airflow that suddenly spread outwards. The strong aura and airflow caused the entire US city's ground to tremble slightly. It was as if an earth dragon had turned over, causing everyone to be terrified. When the people who were rushing towards the flames heard the deafening phoenix cry, they all stopped in their tracks in shock. They looked in disbelief at the scarlet figure that soared into the sky and lit up the entire night sky with raging flames. The visual shock went straight to their souls and set off waves in their hearts that couldn't be calmed down for a long time. That's a phoenix. That's the ancient mythical beast, Fire Phoenix. An ancient mythical beast actually appeared here. Who is it? Who owns an ancient mythical beast? Everyone exclaimed in disbelief. Their minds and eyes were filled with the dazzling figure of the Fire Phoenix in the night sky. Previously, they heard that a mythical beast had appeared in the 9 Volts forest. However, they only saw its shadow in the sky and didn't see its real body. At that time, it even attracted cultivators from other countries to come and snatch it. They didn't expect that this ancient mythical beast, Fire Phoenix, would still end up in their glorious sun kingdom. Looking at the Fire Phoenix that was flapping its wings and burning with flames in the sky, they only felt their blood boiling. It was actually the true body of the ancient Fire Phoenix. In a small 9th-class country like theirs, they actually had the chance to see an ancient mythical beast. How could they not be excited? In the crowd, Murong Yixian, who was rushing towards the flames, also looked at the flaming figure in the night sky in shock. The ancient mythical beast, the king of all birds, the true body of the phoenix was so dazzling and beautiful. It was simply too unbelievable. Although his heart was surging with excitement, he did not stay for too long. Instead, he swiftly returned to his senses and flew towards the flames. On the roof of the Su mansion, the gray-robed elder could not even stand up under the powerful and thick ancient pressure. His legs trembled as he fell to the ground. He looked at the Fire Phoenix spreading its wings and soaring in the sky in disbelief. His eyes were crimson red, and he was unwilling to believe it. No, this isn't real. How can you possess the ancient divine beast, the Fire Phoenix? How is this possible? Under the powerful ancient pressure, he shouldn't even be able to speak. However, he forcefully broke through the ancient pressure. The moment he opened his mouth, his heart and meridians were all damaged. Blood flowed from one side of his mouth, but he was still madly unwilling to believe this cruel reality. The prey that was already in his bag suddenly flew away and brought him such a strong and unacceptable shock. How could he accept this? Fengjiu, who was standing against the wind, coldly looked down at the old man who had fallen to the ground in a sorry state. Her cold voice slowly rang out. Dying under the Fire Phoenix isn't a loss for you. Just as her voice fell, the Fire Phoenix in the sky swooped down with raging flames. It spread open its wings of flames and wrapped the old man up before flying into the sky once again. No! Chapter 103. When Murong Yixian leaped over the rooftops and arrived at a rooftop not far from the Su family, he saw the shocking scene. He couldn't help but stare blankly and absent-mindedly at the extremely beautiful and shocking scene. On the rooftop of the Su family, the red figure stood against the wind. The dazzling red robe seemed so unbridled and demonic in the flames. The fluttering black hair, the raging flames, and the huge fire phoenix hovering above his head. Everything seemed so mysterious, so beautiful, so unreal. Perhaps sensing his gaze, that person turned around. The golden devil's snare flower mask was clearly reflected in his eyes under the illumination of the flames. He couldn't help but have the urge to take off his mask and see his true appearance. However, before he could return to his senses, he saw the fire phoenix in the night sky let out a low cry. As it swooped down, it turned into a ray of light and entered the body of the mysterious person standing against the wind, disappearing. Almost at the same time, that person withdrew his gaze from him. Taking a few leaps, his figure flitted through the flames like a ghost, quickly disappearing into the night. He couldn't help but take a step forward, reaching out to call out to that person. However, in the end, he retracted his hand and didn't call out. Who was that person? He thought. He could vaguely guess. Dazzling red robes, mysterious and demonic aura, unbridled and unbridled momentum, and that golden devil's snare flower mask. Who else could it be but the mysterious ghost doctor? When the various family heads who rushed over saw the Sioux family surrounded by flames, they couldn't help but gasp. They couldn't believe that a mid-sized family had fallen just like that. Hiss. This is the Sioux family? Heavens! Has the Sioux family been annihilated? How did the Sioux family provoke the master of the ancient mythical beast to end up with the entire family being annihilated? The crowd discussed as they watched the entire Sioux family being surrounded by crackling flames, sighing endlessly. They had an indescribably complicated feeling in their hearts toward a family that had fallen just like that and disappeared from Yunhua City. This was a world where the strong ruled. This was the unchanging truth of this world. Even if you were from one of the 100 clans, if you provoked someone powerful, it would only take a few minutes for you to be wiped out. Even if your entire clan was wiped out, it would only take one night. A clan head saw that Murong Yixin, who had arrived first, was looking in a direction absent-mindedly. His eyes couldn't help but flash as he stepped forward and asked, "Third Prince, you were the first to arrive here. Did you see who it was?" Hearing this, the other family heads who were talking also looked at Murong Yixuan. That's right. Then who was the one who annihilated the Sioux clan? Then who was the person who owned the ancient mythological beast Fire Phoenix? Murong Yixin came back to his senses and saw that they were all looking at him with questioning gazes. He pondered for a moment and said, "I only saw a red figure. As for who it was, I couldn't see clearly." Red figure? Everyone's heart skipped a beat, and they couldn't help but think of a person. Ghost Doctor. Chapter 104. 2 days later, in Peach Blossom Cove, Fengjiu, dressed in white casual clothes, walked out of her room and was greeted by Lung Shuang. "Master." Lung Shuang looked at her worriedly. Ever since she came back that day, her master's face had been very pale. "Is my brother awake?" She looked at Lung Shuang and asked, her voice still weak. That night, her heart had been injured. If she hadn't been proficient in medicine, she wouldn't have been able to get out of bed in the past 2 days. However, even though her injuries had improved, she hadn't fully recovered. Even when she spoke loudly or coughed, she would still feel a dull pain. "Young master is awake." I'll go take a look," she said as she walked out. Guanshilin's courtyard was next to hers, so it was convenient for her to walk around. Therefore, it was only a few steps away from the courtyard. She entered the courtyard, but before she pushed the door open, she heard coughing coming from inside. She stopped and looked at Lung Shuang. Did he drink his medicine? He drank it when he woke up. Hearing this, Fengjiu walked in. When she entered, she saw that he was about to sit up on the bed. She quickly walked forward. "You're still injured? Lie down." "Xiaojiu." Guanxilin saw her and smiled. But when he saw her pale face, he couldn't help but be startled. "Xiaojiu, why do you look so pale?" He had just woken up and hadn't had time to ask them how he got here. "You injured your heart. You'll be fine after a few days of rest." She sat down by the bed and reached out to check his pulse as she said, "Although you have many injuries, most of them are superficial. Fortunately, none of your muscles or bones were injured. Otherwise, You need to rest for at least 10 days to half a month. Seeing her pale face and thinking that he had been rescued, no matter how slow he was, he knew that she must have saved him. His eyes couldn't help but warm. Xiaojio, I'm so useless. I always cause you trouble. What are you talking about? She pulled the blanket over him and said, You'll be able to get out of bed and walk around after 2 days of rest. However, the Guan family's election is in 3 days, so time is a little tight. I'm worried that your body won't be able to take it. It's okay, I can do it. I will definitely go back to the Guan family's election. Then you should rest well for the next 2 days. I will prescribe medicine for you, so that you can recover as soon as possible. She stood up and said, I will go back to my room first. If there is anything you need, just tell Ling Shuang. All right, you should rest more if you're not feeling well. You don't have to come and see me all the time. Feng Jiu smiled and nodded. He looked at Ling Shuang and told him to change the dressing. Finally, he returned to his room and entered the space spiritual abode. That night, not only was her heart damaged, even Fire Phoenix fell into a deep sleep. Fire Phoenix, who appeared in the form of a human child, had to wait until he reached adulthood if he wanted to reveal his true form. However, last night, she used the ancient mark and blood to break through the bindings, allowing him to reveal his true form and kill the enemy. When he revealed his true form, his battle prowess was almost at the peak of an adult ancient divine beast. Naturally, it was easy for him to defeat a martial great master. However, the price he had to pay was great. That was, he fell into a coma and no one knew when he would wake up. She looked at the little Fire Phoenix, who was wrapped in a small fireball. He still looked like a 3-year-old human child. He seemed to be in a deep sleep as he lay inside the fireball. Chapter 105. 3 days later, an inconspicuous carriage slowly moved along the street. The carriage was not conspicuous, but the driver was a cold and elegant girl dressed in black. Her face was delicate and beautiful, and her body wrapped in black was extremely hot and seductive. If she had a smile on her face, she would definitely be a stunner that could make men fall head over heels for her. However, this girl in black was emitting a cold aura, and that cold aura made people not dare to approach her. In the carriage, Guan Shilin looked at Xiaojio, who was reading a book, and asked in confusion, Xiaojio, your medical skills are so good. Why don't you remove the scars on your face first? It had been so long, but the scars on her face had not faded. Every time he saw those scars on her face, he was worried for her, but she seemed to be used to it and did not care. Didn't they say that women did not want their faces to be damaged? Why did he see that she was not worried at all and did not care at all? No hurry. The scar removal ointment I made is still missing one ingredient, she said casually, turning the page and continuing to read. This was a scroll of soaring cloud steps, which she found in her master's space collection. She looked at it and found that the footwork inside was much better than her original footwork. She had been reading it since she left the Peach Blossom Cove, and now she was reluctant to put it down. Until, when she smelled the fragrance, she could not help but raise her head. Brother, do you smell anything? Her eyes lit up as she looked at him. Smelling the fragrance, she couldn't help but swallow her saliva. Seeing her greedy look, Guan Shilin could not help but laugh. He reached out and tapped her head. You have such a good sense of smell. You can smell the fragrance of scallion pancakes through the curtain? Yes, it's scallion pancakes. She smiled and shook his arm. Brother, go buy it for me, I want to. She stretched out 2 fingers and shook it. Okay, I'll go buy it. He shook his head and smiled. At this time, Ling Shuang, who was driving the carriage, heard the conversation inside and slowed down. Guan Shilin lifted the curtain and jumped down from the carriage. He said to Ling Shuang, Stop the carriage for a while. I'll go buy some cakes. I'll be back soon. As he spoke, he had already walked toward a small stall not far away. Ling Shuang stopped the carriage and waited. He looked at the stall. Uncle, give me 4 scallion pancakes. Guan Shilin took out some money and shouted, Young master, do you want 2 bowls of mung bean soup? Scallion pancakes with mung bean soup are also very tasty. The old man asked as he filled the hot pancakes. All right, then give me 2 bowls. No, 3 bowls. Help me pack it up so I can take it away. Good, good, good. The old man smiled and quickly packed 3 bowls of mung bean soup for him. Not far away, Murong Yixian, who had accompanied Feng Qinggu out of Yushuan court, inadvertently glanced over and saw the man who was buying things in front of the stall. He couldn't help but be startled as a hint of joy surfaced in his eyes. It was him, the older brother of the woman in red. If he was here, then was the woman in red also here? Thinking of this, his heart could not help but beat. A feeling of nervousness and anticipation filled his heart. Brother Murong, what's wrong? Feng Qinggu, who was holding his arm, asked doubtfully. Seeing that he was standing still, she followed his gaze and saw a man in ordinary clothes buying scallion pancakes. Chapter 106. Yes, it's a friend. I'll go over and say hi. Wait for me here, he said hurriedly. Seeing that the man was about to leave, he quickly walked over. When Feng Qinggu saw this, she felt a little strange. Her gaze fell on the man and sized him up, but she couldn't see anything outstanding about him. Just as Guan Shilin was about to leave, he heard a voice in his ear. Mr. Murong Yishuan called out. He walked up to him, and a gentle smile appeared on his handsome and elegant face. I didn't expect to meet you here in Yunhua City after we parted at Stone Forest Town. Guan Shilin looked at him in confusion. You are... He didn't remember this person at all. Seeing that he didn't remember him, Murong Yishuan's smile froze. However, he quickly recovered and said, My surname is Murong, and my name is Yishuan. Murong Yishuan? Guan Shilin was slightly stunned. Then, he looked at him in surprise and excitement. He even raised his voice slightly. You're Murong Yishuan, the third prince of glorious Sun Country, the martial arts genius? As a member of Yunhua City's Guan clan, he had naturally heard of Murong Yishuan's name before. However, he had never seen it before. He only knew that this person was not only well known, he was also a cultivation genius of the new generation. He was the pride of the heavens. He didn't expect to meet him today. Thinking of this, he was excited. Third Prince, I've wanted to meet you for a long time. I didn't expect to meet you on the street. What fate? Before he could speak, he said, Do you know? You've always been my goal. I used to work hard so that I could defeat you. Hearing the first few words, Murong Yishuan's smile deepened. He was about to ask if his sister was here. However, after hearing the last few words, his smile froze. He thought to himself, this person is really rude. However, he didn't mind and smiled. I haven't asked for your name yet. My name is Guan Shilin. He reported his name without hesitation. So it's Mr. Guan. Is your sister with you? When he walked over, he noticed that there were many snacks in his hand. Was he buying them for his sister? She liked to eat these? Hearing him mention his baby sister, Guan Shilin stopped smiling and stared at him warily. Why are you asking about my baby sister? You don't even know her. It's like this. Previously in Stone Forest Town, I unintentionally offended your sister. I've been looking for an opportunity to apologize to her, but I've never been able to meet her. They had met. That time at the Peach Blossom Cove, he had seen her like a flower demon. Ever since he came back, he had been in a trance. His heart could not help but sink. In fact, during this period of time, he had been thinking about his relationship with Song Chinga. He wanted to find a suitable opportunity to tell her about it, but he couldn't find the right time. The hand holding the scallion pancake waved his hand. No need. My little sister is very magnanimous. She won't care about any offense. She won't care about it because you haven't angered her yet. If you angered her, she wouldn't care about magnanimity. She's still waiting for my scallion pancakes. That's all, I'll leave first. Thinking about his little sister, everything else was trivial. He didn't even have the mood to chat with him. He quickly ran to the carriage, afraid that she would wait too long. Mr. Guan. Murong Yishuan's gaze followed the direction he ran to and fell on the carriage parked to the side. His heart skipped a beat. Chapter 107. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but follow. Feng Qingga, who was behind them, frowned slightly when she saw this. She glanced at the inconspicuous carriage before moving forward to follow them. On the other side, Guanxilin came to the side of the carriage and handed a scallion pancake to Lung Shuang. "This is for you. There's also some mung bean soup. Eat it while it's hot before we leave." Lung Shuang glanced at him and reached out to take it, thanking him. He stepped into the carriage and lifted the curtain with one hand to go in. He said, "Little Nine, the scallion pancakes are still warm. That uncle said that they taste very good together with the mung bean soup, so I brought a portion for each of you." Feng Jiu in the carriage reached out to take the scallion pancake and mung bean soup. She smiled and said, "Mung bean soup. I haven't had it in a long time. Brother, thank you." "Hee, what are you thanking me for? As long as you like it, we'll buy a few maids back and let them serve you and make you delicious food." After being together for so long, he knew that she loved delicious food. "Okay," she smiled in response. Seeing him sit back in the carriage, she opened the bag and was about to take a bite of the scallion pancake when she suddenly heard a familiar voice from outside the carriage. "Miss Guan, I'm Murong Yixian." "Miss Guan? Who was he calling?" Feng Jiu in the carriage was slightly startled. She looked at her cheap brother, who was also startled, and silently asked, "What's going on?" Guanxilin took a bite of the scallion pancake and said, "I just met him when I was shopping. His name is Murong Yixian. He said he offended you last time in Stone Forest Town and wanted to apologize." Speaking of this, he was slightly annoyed and said, "I just told him that he didn't need to, but he still followed me. I really don't know what he wants. I better go down and take a look." He put down the scallion pancake in his hand and was about to lift the curtain and jump off the carriage when he suddenly turned back and said to Feng Jiu, "Xiao Jiu, put on your veil." The scar on Xiao Jiu's face hadn't healed yet. She always wore a veil when she went out. He didn't want others to look at her with dirty eyes after seeing the scar on her face. Feng Jiu smiled as he put on the veil. He felt a little strange. What was Murong Yishuan trying to do? Murong Yixian, who was waiting outside the carriage, was a little nervous at this moment. His palms were slightly sweaty. He looked at the carriage with anticipation. Would she lift the curtain? Did she remember the 2 times she had met him by chance? When Lung Shuang, who was driving the carriage outside, saw the trace of expectation on Murong Yixian's face, he couldn't help but frown and looked at him strangely. What was Murong Yixian trying to do? Based on what she knew, wasn't he engaged to the Feng Manor's young miss, Feng Qingge? Why was he looking at the carriage with such an expectant and nervous expression? The curtain of the carriage was lifted by Guanxilin, and he walked down. He casually let down the curtain and looked at Murong Yixian, who was standing in front of the carriage. "Didn't I say that you don't need to apologize? Why did you still follow me?" At this moment, Murong Yixian was looking at the carriage in a daze. When he thought of the appearance of the woman in the carriage when the curtain was lifted, his heart began to thump. Today, she wasn't wearing red clothes. Instead, she was wearing a white dress. Her face was covered with a veil of the same color. She just sat there quietly, her entire body exuding an elegant and refined aura. She appeared so serene and elegant. Chapter 108. Guanxilin, who was waiting for his reply, saw that he was staring at the carriage behind him in a daze, and his face immediately darkened. He took a step to the left, and his large body blocked his way. "I say, what are you looking at?" "Brother Murong, do you know the person in the carriage?" Feng Qingge slowly walked over and asked in a soft voice. Her gaze also landed on the carriage. Then she shifted her gaze to Guanxilin and revealed a faint smile. "This young master, since you are my big brother Murong's friend, then you are also my Feng Qingge's friend. Which of you is inside the carriage? Why don't you come out and meet me?" She had been watching for quite a while and was really puzzled. The dazed expression on Murong Yixian's face made her feel a sense of crisis for the first time since she took over Feng Qingge's identity. That gaze was too familiar, and it made her heart tremble. Once she had quietly watched from the side, just like she did just now, watching him use that kind of gentle and affectionate gaze to look at Feng Qingge. However, Ever since she took over this identity, she felt that he had always lacked the affection and gentleness that he used to have for Fengqinga. Even when he looked at her, said gentle words, and was very considerate towards her, she was still sensitive enough to sense it. This made her uneasy, but she didn't dare to look into it, afraid that the final result would be something she couldn't bear. She had always ignored it and kept telling herself that she was overthinking it. But just now, she had stood there and watched him lift the curtain and the man inside the carriage. The gaze he had looked into the carriage almost made her collapse. Without looking, a woman's intuition told her that the person in the carriage was a woman. However, what kind of woman was she? How could she make him lose his composure like this? Guanxilin looked at her, as if he was looking at an idiot. Am I very familiar with you? Is my sister very familiar with you? If you want to see her, does she have to come out and let you see her? Hearing this, Fengqinga's expression turned ugly, but she did not flare up. Instead, she turned her head towards the carriage and softly said, "Miss, it's fate that brought us together. Why don't you come out and meet me?" In the carriage, Fengjiu was playing with a strand of hair that had fallen to his chest. His eyes were slightly narrowed, and the corners of his lips under the veil held a playful and demonic smile. His voice was neither fast nor slow, and it carried 3 parts laziness and 7 parts indifference. "Do I know you? Why should I go out to see you?" Hearing the voice coming from the carriage, Fengqinga was slightly startled. It seemed to be a little familiar. She wasn't the only one who had this feeling. Even Murong Yixian was slightly startled. That voice was somewhat similar to Qing Ji's, but it was also somewhat different. Because that voice was filled with a casual laziness, it was very seductive. Perhaps it was the familiar voice that made her feel uneasy, for she walked past Guanxilin and reached the side of the carriage to lift the curtain. However, before her hand could touch the curtain, it was caught by a pair of large hands. "What are you doing?" Guanxilin's eyes widened and his face darkened. He stared at this beautiful woman with an extremely displeased expression. He felt that her brain was filled with faces and she couldn't understand human language at all. "Let go!" Fengqinga berated, frowning as she looked at the hand that was holding her wrist. Guanxilin pulled her back 2 steps before letting go of her hand. His face was filled with disgust. "If you didn't want to lift the curtain, do you think I wanted to hold your hand?" "Pa, Chinga!" Murong Yixian's expression changed slightly, and he quickly stepped forward. Chapter 109. He hadn't done anything bad, had he? Why did this woman slap him? In his entire life, he had never been slapped by anyone before. He was furious, but he didn't make a move. He was a man. He couldn't possibly hit a woman on the streets, right? Lung Shuang, who was holding the reins, had a cold look in his eyes. Just as he was about to get off the carriage, he saw the carriage's curtains being lifted by a pair of slender, fair hands. "Mississippi," he called out and hurriedly lifted the curtains to let her out. Fengjiu bent over and walked out of the carriage. She held on to Lung Shuang and lightly lifted the hem of her skirt as she got off the carriage. She looked at her cheapskate brother whose hands were tightly clenched into fists and saw the slap mark on his face. Her eyes narrowed slightly as she looked at the 2 people and slowly walked forward. When Murong Yixian saw the woman dressed in white coming down from the carriage, his eyes immediately lit up. When he saw her graceful and unhurried figure walking towards him, his heart couldn't help but feel nervous and a faint trace of anticipation. When Fengqinga saw the woman dressed in white coming down from the carriage, she was completely stupefied. That figure, that posture, it was actually so familiar, as if slap, slap. 2 resounding slaps rang out, waking the 2 people up with a start. It also stunned the surrounding passers-by who were looking at them. Due to their outstanding appearances and the fact that they were on the streets, the surrounding people had long been paying attention to them. After all, Murong Yixian and Fengqinga were influential figures in Yinhua City. What they didn't expect was that Fengqinga would suddenly raise her hand and slap that man. What they didn't expect even more was that the veiled woman dressed in white coming down from the carriage would actually raise her hand and slap Fengqinga twice after walking slowly towards them. They were left speechless. This scene was too explosive. Feng Qingge covered her burning face in disbelief. Her eyes were almost spitting fire as she stared at the woman in white. You actually dare to hit me?" Feng Jiu casually swung her hand that hurt and didn't even look at her as she earnestly instructed the stunned Guan Shilin. "Brother, did you see that? When someone slaps you, you have to return 2 slaps. This is the etiquette of reciprocity. We can't be impolite." Guan Shilin's eyes lit up as he looked at her with worship. He nodded heavily, and, "Brother will remember. If there's a next time, I don't care if she's a man or a woman. I'll hit her first." "And that's right." She nodded with a smile and said, "It's getting late. Let's not let irrelevant people waste our time. Let's go." "All right." Guan Shilin's face was filled with a joyful smile. He couldn't be bothered with the two anymore. In his opinion, his precious little sister had already helped him pay back the slap twice as much. As a man, he naturally wouldn't haggle over it with that woman. Unrelated person. Murong Yixian stared blankly at her back as she turned and left, her words echoing in his mind. That's right. Wasn't he an unrelated person? He wasn't anyone to her. What right did he have to see her whenever he wanted to? However, why did he feel so disappointed after hearing her words and seeing her turn and leave without even looking at him? Stop right there. Feng Qingge shot forward and blocked Feng Jiu with a face full of anger. "You want to leave after hitting me? Not so easy." Chapter 110. Feng Jiu had long been on guard against her. Seeing her reach out to take off her veil, she naturally hid behind Guan Shilin beside her. Her hands tightly clutched the clothes on his back as she blinked her beautiful eyes and said in a wrong tone, "Brother, she's bullying me." Murong Yixian was slightly startled. He didn't expect that the elegant and calm girl would suddenly hide behind her brother and reveal such a wronged and delicate gaze. Moreover, her soft words were filled with grievance and accusation. He couldn't help but want to stand in front of her to protect her and be her support. Seeing his precious little sister hiding behind him and complaining about that girl's rude behavior with that wronged voice, Guan Shilin glared at her, puffed out his chest, and put his hands on his waist to push her up. "What are you doing? How can you be so rude? You even said you're General Feng's daughter? General Feng's famous name. How could he have raised such a rude daughter? I think you're 80% fake." His voice was very loud, and there was a hint of straightforwardness in his rough voice. Without waiting for Feng Qingge to respond, he saw that there were quite a few people surrounding them and loudly said, "Everyone, what do you think? Isn't this girl a little too rude? We don't know her, but she came up and slapped me and even wanted to take off my little sister's veil. Don't you think that's too outrageous?" Feng Qingge had no choice but to retreat because he had puffed out his chest and pushed it towards her. However, the moment she heard his words, she became extremely angry, especially when she saw that there were already quite a few people around her who were pointing and gossiping about her, while Murong Yixian, who was on her mind, was currently staring foolishly at the woman in white who was hiding behind her elder brother. When he didn't stand out to speak up for her, she felt even more embarrassed. She glanced at him with grievance and sadness. Her eyes reddened slightly as she covered her face and quickly ran away. "AI, your beauty ran away crying," Feng Jiu said with a smile. Looking at Murong Yixian, who was still looking at her, she felt that all men had bad tempers. They were eating from the bowl and still wanted to look at the plate. Murong Yixian looked at her with a complicated gaze but didn't say anything. He only cupped his hands and bowed to her before walking away. "Brother, let's go. We've wasted quite a bit of time here." She patted his arm, indicating for him to enter the carriage. "All right," Guan Shilin responded with a grin. Looking at Feng Jiu, who was getting into the carriage, he suddenly stopped and asked in confusion, "Xiao Jiu, why do I feel that the woman just now looks a little like you?" When Feng Jiu, who had lifted the curtain and was about to enter the carriage, heard this, a trace of surprise flashed through her eyes. She turned her head and smiled. "How so?" She didn't expect her cheap brother to be so meticulous despite his careless appearance. Guan Shilin scratched his head, and thought for a moment. Their figures and physiques are similar, but their temperaments are different. Their faces and eyes are also somewhat similar. She smiled as she entered the carriage and sat down. She waved at him, "Quickly come up." Oh, only then did he stride into the carriage, lift the curtain, and sit inside. The long Shuang outside waited for them to sit down before continuing to drive the carriage to the Guan family. Fengjiu, who was in the carriage, took off her veil and looked at him with a smile. "Brother, your eyes are brighter than some people's." He was a little stunned. He didn't understand these words that came out of nowhere. "You'll know in the future." Chapter 111. Today, the Guan residence was as crowded as a marketplace. There were many carriages parked outside the residence. They were all invited to watch the competition for the position of the young master of the Guan family. The people who came today were those who were on good terms with the Guan family, as well as those who were of similar strength as the Guan family. When Long Shuang drove the carriage to the gate of the Guan mansion, she could faintly hear the cheers of the competition from inside. She stopped the carriage and said to the two people in the carriage, "Young master, miss, we're here." The curtain opened and Guan Shilin jumped off the carriage. He reached out his hand and said, "Xiao Jiu, come, let me help you." The two guards at the gate widened their eyes when they saw Guan Shilin. "Isn't that young master Shilin? Isn't he dead? Why is he still alive?" The expressions of the two guards changed greatly, but one of them recovered and hurriedly ran inside to report. Feng Jiu helped him down the carriage. She looked at the carriages parked outside the Guan residence and said with a smile, "Brother, it seems to be quite lively today. Yes, all the families of the same level will come to watch the competition." His eyes fell on the plaque above the gate. The Guan residence. This was his home, but it felt so foreign and cold to him. "Young Master Shilin, young master." The guard at the gate quickly came forward and bowed. She looked at him with bewilderment and then secretly sized up the white-clothed woman beside him, who had an outstanding temperament. Everyone in the Guan residence said he was dead, but how did he come back alive? Has the competition started? Guan Shilin looked at him and asked in a low voice. At this moment, he exuded a rough and steady aura. Just the change in his aura was not something he could compare to a few months ago. It's starting. Under the pressure of his aura, the guard couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. Hearing this, Guan Shilin strode inside, followed by Feng Jiu. Long Shuang stayed by her side. After they entered, the guard could not help but wipe the cold sweat off his forehead as he muttered, "It's only been a few months. How did young Master Shilin's aura become so frightening?" Thinking of Ku Xinya, who was already married to young Master Wan, the guard was curious. If young Master Shilin returned and found out that his fiancée had become young Master Ruan's wife, what would he do? It was a pity that he had to guard the door and couldn't go in to see what was going on. Otherwise, he really wanted to go in and take a look. As for inside, below the competition stage, those sitting in the front row were the main figures of the Guan family, as well as the family heads. In the back row were the younger generation of the Guan family, as well as the children of the family heads. They chatted from time to time while watching the competition on the stage. The Guan family patriarch's son, Guan Shi Ruan, had already won 8 or 9 rounds in a row. No one in the Guan family's generation was a match for him, so the family patriarchs kept praising him. Young Master Guan is really a young hero. He has the demeanor of a family head. To have such strength at such a young age, his future is limitless. The Guan family patriarch's face was full of pride when he heard this, but he still smiled modestly and said, "It's all thanks to everyone's praise. Which of the family head's sons isn't a dragon among men? I often tell him that when he has time, he has to learn more from the young masters." Chapter 112. Of course, the clan heads in the first row also saw the steward coming in a hurry. After the steward whispered something in Master Guan's ear, Master Guan's face slightly changed as he stood up. "Everyone, this old man will excuse himself for a moment." After he finished speaking, he did not wait for anyone to react and followed the steward out. Let's keep watching. My father must have remembered something, Master Guan said to the other clan heads with a smile. He was confused. What made my father's face change? Xinya, who was sitting with the women of the Guan family, was now the young madam of the Guan family. Naturally, she was also watching the competition on the stage. Previously, when she saw her husband standing on the stage with no one being a match for him, her heart soared. She thought, she is right. She made the right choice. However, when she saw the steward rushing in and the old master leaving, her originally joyous mood could not help but tighten. Her hands unconsciously clenched the corner of her clothes, and her face turned slightly pale. When the steward left with Master Guan, he glanced at her and reminded her of Guan Shilin. Could it be that he really came? Is he really here? Before Guan Shilin and Feng Jiao could step into the arena, a deep and old voice called out to them. Come on, let's go. Shilin, is it really you? Master Guan walked over with his walking stick. When he saw the tall man, he was surprised. There was confusion in his eyes, but he wasn't surprised. Guan Shilin saw the expression on Master Guan's face. He was a bit cold. He twisted his lips and said, Grandpa, you. Master Guan wanted to ask, why did you come back? However, he changed his mind and said, it's good that you are back. Go back to the yard and have a rest. Come to the study later. I want to talk to you. The Ke family must have told Grandpa that I'm still alive. He looked at Master Guan and didn't move. Aren't you curious? Why did my cousin tell you that I am dead? Grandfather, shouldn't you tell me how my fiancée became my cousin's wife? As an elder, Master Guan's face turned dark when he was questioned by a young man. He frowned and looked at Guan Shilin angrily. What are you talking about? Do you want to question me as soon as you come back? Didn't you hear me? I told you to come to the study later. You haven't been back for a few months. You have changed. You don't even know the rules, do you? Grandpa, you don't feel happy that I am alive. Master Guan didn't know what to say. He was embarrassed. Guan Shilin looked at him indifferently. He didn't care about Master Guan's reaction. Stop. Master Guan stepped in front of him and frowned. Where are you going? Isn't the clan competition today? Don't I have to participate? Today is the competition for the position of the young master. You are not Shiruan's match. You don't have to participate. Master Guan spoke in a deep voice. He looked at Guan Shilin's face and said, Since you are back, go back to the yard and have a rest. Don't embarrass me. Chapter 113. He looked at his grandfather, and the smile on his face slowly disappeared. The intimidating aura of iron and blood also spread out from his body, and a rough voice with a firm tone came out from his mouth. No, I came back today to participate in the competition. Grandpa, don't worry. I'm not interested in the position of the young master of the Guan family. I just want to ask my cousin for advice. As soon as he finished speaking, he strode forward, not giving him a chance to stop him. Grandpa Guan was also stunned at that moment. He was surprised to see the sudden change in Guan Shilin's aura. That strong and cold aura made him feel like he saw his father's shadow in Guan Shilin. For a moment, he was in a daze. Feng Jiao, who had been watching from the side, smiled under the veil. She looked at Grandpa Guan, who was in a daze, and walked forward. Lung Shuang, who was dressed in black, naturally stood behind her, silently protecting her. When the tall and strong Guan Shilin walked in with steady steps, Guan Shilin, who had just won another round, suddenly stared at him as if he had seen a ghost. He lost his composure and exclaimed, You! How are you still alive? His face turned deathly pale. He found it hard to believe, yet he was also a little panicked. There was also a little bit of a guilty conscience. He thought he was dead. In a place like Jufulin, he couldn't have survived with such a serious injury. But why was he still alive? Why didn't anyone tell him that he was still alive? There was another person who also lost her composure. It was Xinya. Almost as soon as she saw Guan Shilin, she instinctively stood up. She was shocked, angry, and a little proud. She thought that Guan Shilin came to the Guan family to participate in the competition because of her, because he couldn't let go of her, because he still thought of her. This greatly satisfied her vanity. At the same time, she was angry. She thought that he came to embarrass her, because she was his fiancée, but now she was his cousin's wife. She was afraid that she couldn't bear to see the two men on and off the stage. Because of Guan Shi Ruan's exclamation and Ku Xinya's loss of composure, the audience was somewhat surprised and followed her gaze. When he saw it, he was a little surprised and also a little stunned. The former was because of the tall and muscular masculine man, while the latter was because of the veiled woman following behind the man. Let's not talk about the patriarch for now. Just the sons sitting in the row behind them. After sizing up Guan Shilin, all looked at the woman in white with amazement. None of them concealed their curiosity and interest in her. After all, they were all men. Their mentality was the same. When they saw a woman with a graceful figure and a refined temperament, they would naturally take a few more looks with interest, especially since the woman's face was still covered by a veil. Although her appearance could not be seen clearly, her pure aura and the pair of beautiful eyes that were exposed outside the veil were enough to show that under the veil was definitely a delicate and charming face. It was human nature to love beauty, so they didn't think it was inappropriate to stare at other women. Chapter 114. In the end, it was Master Guan who came back to his senses first. He stood up and walked towards Guan Shilin with a big smile. He said excitedly, "Shilin, you're back. Everyone in the family has been very worried about you these days. Where have you been? Why didn't you send a message back?" Shilin? Guan Shilin? Everyone looked at each other. Didn't they say that he went to Jufulin with his family, but left in a fit of anger because he didn't listen to the leader's orders? Then he was killed by a beast. How did he manage to come back alive? They all heard that Guan Shilin's wife was Guan Shilin's fiancée. Now that he came back, his fiancée became his cousin's woman. Although they didn't show it on their faces, everyone was still waiting for a good show. They didn't say anything and just looked at the people in front of them. Guan Shilin looked at him and didn't say anything. His face was gloomy and there was no trace of a smile on his face. Seeing his expressionless face, Master Guan's expression also changed. He asked in a low voice, "What's wrong? Uncle asked you a question. Why didn't you answer?" Guan Shilin's gaze landed on his cousin, who was trying his best to suppress his panic and guilt. His voice was cold as he said, "I'm here to participate in the competition." As he spoke, he had already stepped forward. Master Guan was startled. He frowned and looked at him. He wanted to stop him, but didn't say anything. In his opinion, he was not his son's opponent. He would only be asking for trouble if he went up. On the stage, Guan Shilin watched him walk over step by step. His panic gradually calmed down. From a moment he appeared until now, he hadn't said that he was the one who stabbed him in the back. He probably wouldn't say it here. After all, this was a family scandal. He had to take care of the Guan family's reputation. Thinking of this, his expression relaxed. His tense heart also relaxed. He smiled and said, "Shilin, it's good that you're back." Guan Shilin walked up the stage and looked at him with a gloomy face. "I thought you didn't want me to come back." Hearing this, the smile on Guan Shirwan's face froze. He said awkwardly, "How could that be? Shilin, are you blaming me for marrying Xinya?" "Actually, it was our elders who made the decision for me to marry Xinya. At that time, we all thought that you had died in Jufu Forest, so..." Everyone nodded their heads when they heard this. Guan Shilin didn't look too good. He was probably angry that his fiancée had become his cousin's woman. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so rude to Master Guan. When Ku Xinya heard the words from the stage, she had a look of self-blame on her face. Her voice was soft and gentle as she said, "Shilin, I was arranged by the elders of both parties to cancel the engagement and marry Shirwan. I hope that you won't be at odds with your family because of me. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame us for not being fated to be together." However, when she heard Guan Shilin's next words, her face turned pale and embarrassed. Guan Shilin glanced at her. He crossed his arms and said with disdain, "You think too highly of yourself. Guan Shilin, am not interested in a fickle and vain woman. Guan Shilin, you've gone too far. Kushinya's father slammed the table and stood up. Hearing his daughter being humiliated in public, his face was full of anger. Chapter 115. Kushilin's father choked and glared at Guan Shilin. Her decision was made by the elders of both sides. It's perfectly justifiable. She's not as unbearable as you say. Whether she's unbearable or not, everyone knows it in their hearts. Guan Shilin coldly snorted and no longer paid attention to them. Instead, he looked at Guan Shilin and cupped his fist. "Cousin, please enlighten me." On the side of the stage, Fengjiu stood not far from the stage and watched the scene on the stage. Suddenly, a man came over. "Miss, there's a seat over there. Why don't we sit down and watch?" A man in embroidered clothes came in front of Fengjiu and blocked her view. Then, he gestured for her to sit. Fengjiu frowned and looked at the man in front of her. No need. She stepped to the left and looked at the stage again. The family heads on the other side were paying attention to the movements on the stage, but the young men in the back row were looking at them from time to time. When they saw that the girl didn't even want to pay attention to the man, they couldn't help but laugh. Although the girl was beautiful, she was in someone else's home. They couldn't just go up and strike up a conversation with her. Moreover, their father was also here. They had to restrain their every move and couldn't step out of line. "Aunt." The man just spoke and was about to step forward when he saw a black figure come up and reach out to block his path. The black figure warned, "Stay away from my family's young lady." The man frowned and was about to speak when he heard a cry of pain from the stage. He couldn't help but look back. What he saw startled him. The two people on the stage had already started fighting. It was Guan Shilin and Guan Shilin. However, how could Guan Shilin's aura be so strong? Even though they were below the stage, they could still feel the intimidating aura emanating from him. It was no wonder that Guan Shilin was punched in the eye and cried out in pain. He looked at his father and the family heads in the front row. Sure enough, he saw the surprise on their faces. Bang, bang, bang. As Guan Shiruan covered his eyes in pain and retreated, Guan Shilin did not stop his attack. Instead, he took a big step forward and lowered his body slightly, throwing out 3 consecutive punches. The punches that were imbued with profound energy landed heavily on Guan Shiruan's abdomen, giving him no chance to retaliate. Blood even seeped out from the corner of his mouth. Family Head's face was dark and solemn. His sharp eyes stared at Guan Shilin, who was on the stage. He found it strange that his strength could improve so quickly in a few short months. Furthermore, the profound energy aura on his body had exploded during the battle. That aura was obviously that of a martial practitioner at the Full Circle realm. Could it be that he had a fortuitous encounter? Otherwise, how could his strength be so fast? Watching his son on the stage, Guan Shilin his hand. If this continues, Shilin his, see, Guan Shilin his, Shilin's. Guan. Brother's eyes, brother Shilin's eyes is how S's. That's right. During the last year's competition, he was beaten up by brother Shilin until he was bedridden for 3 days. The Guan family's disciples below the stage were discussing in low voices. They looked at Guan Shilin in amazement. The next scene instantly silenced the discussion. Guan Shilin. Chapter 116. When the audience saw this scene, they all had different expressions. The family's competitions were generally based on profound strength and martial skills. Therefore, very few people would use their swords. Guan Shiruan, who couldn't win with his bare hands, took out his weapon. Once he took out his weapon, the nature of the competition was different. Moreover, because he took out his weapon, even if he won, it wouldn't be honorable. What's more, from their point of view, Guan Shiruan's strength was no match for Guan Shilin. As the patriarchs of the family, if they couldn't even make this kind of judgment, then they wouldn't be able to hold the position of patriarch. Seeing his son take out his sword, Patriarch Guan's face turned extremely ugly, but he didn't say anything to stop it. Instead, he let the situation continue to develop. Today was the young patriarch's election. His son must win. As for Guan Shilin, when he saw Guan Shiruan take out his sword, his expression didn't change. His hands clenched into fists and his knuckles cracked. Suddenly, a visible Xian energy aura gushed out from his body. What a strong Xian energy aura! The patriarchs below the stage exclaimed when they saw the Xian energy aura gushing out from his body. One or two of them even stood up involuntarily with shock in their eyes. With Guan Shilin's age, he had Xian energy aura that was comparable to theirs. What did this mean? It was already self-evident. This boy was definitely not someone to be trifled with. Ku Xingyao's father was also a discerning person. When he saw the aura gushing out from Guan Shilin's body, he was stunned and couldn't help but murmur, "I misjudged. I actually misjudged." Ku Xingyao also looked at Guan Shilin in shock. Her body trembled slightly, and she couldn't believe what she was seeing. How could he be so strong? How did he become so strong? Below the stage, Grandfather Guan, who had followed them in, looked at the brave and powerful Guan Shilin on the stage. He seemed to be reminded of his most outstanding son. His old eyes were filled with confusion as he looked at the strong and intimidating figure on the stage. For a moment, he was filled with complex emotions. It was also at this moment that Guan Shilin, who was on the stage, suddenly dashed out. His speed was so fast that several figures appeared on the stage. He leaped forward and grabbed Guan Shiruan's wrist. His hand bent down, and with a cracking sound, Guan Shiruan let out a scream. Hiss! Clang! Guan Shiruan's sword fell to the ground with a crisp sound. The audience also stood up in shock and looked at Guan Shilin in disbelief. Phantom Shift. He actually managed to cultivate Phantom Shift. All the patriarchs were shocked, but no one cared that he had broken Guan Shiruan's hand. What they cared about was that he had cultivated a movement technique that allowed him to dispel illusions. Even they might not be able to cultivate that kind of movement technique, but he, a young man in his 20s, actually managed to cultivate it. For a moment, the gazes of all the patriarchs looking at him became extremely hot, as if a group of lecherous old ghosts had seen a peerless beauty stripped naked. They wished they could immediately pounce on him and swallow him whole and take him for themselves. At this moment, even Grandfather Guan's eyes were shining with excitement. His body was trembling with excitement. He slammed the crutch in his hand into the ground and laughed excitedly. Chapter 117. Everyone was shocked and pleasantly surprised. Only the clan head of the Guan family's face was as black as a clay pot. It was so gloomy that water could drip out. He clenched his fists and stared at Guan Shilin, who was on the stage. A cold, killing intent flashed in his eyes. Guan Shilin's hand was broken, and his other hand was pinned on the stage. He couldn't move his body at all. His face was pressed against the stage, so he couldn't even scream. Guan Shilin stared at his cousin, who had been defeated by him, with a complicated look in his eyes. Initially, he wanted to cripple his cousin's hand. However, when he thought of the times when they had cultivated together when they were young, he could not help but soften his heart. You lost. He retracted his hand, averted his gaze, and looked below the stage. The stab in the back in the Jufu forest had already cut off their brotherly relationship. Today, he defeated his cousin and proved himself to them. He wanted to tell them that he, Guan Shilin, was no worse than anyone else. You're really a young hero. Master Guan, your grandson has really shocked us. Congratulations, Master Guan. Your son is so outstanding. His future is limitless. Seeing that the winner had been decided, the heads of the families all congratulated Master Guan on the side. With such a genius in the family's rise was just around the corner. Ha ha ha. Thank you, thank you. Master Guan couldn't close his mouth from laughing. When he looked at the stage with a smile and a gratified look, his face suddenly changed, and he exclaimed out loud, "Stop!" Everyone was shocked. They followed his gaze, and when they saw it, they were also astonished. Guan Shiruan, who had just climbed up from the stage, pulled out a dagger hidden in his boot. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness and madness as he stared at Guan Shilin, whose back was facing him. Guan Shilin, who had his back facing Guan Shilin, didn't even turn his head. Instead, He turned around and kicked Guan Shilin. Guan Shilin, who was holding a dagger, screamed as he flew several meters away and rolled off the stage. Poof! Guan Shilin fell off the stage and spat out a mouthful of blood. He was lying on the ground and didn't even have the strength to stand up. Shilin, the Guan family's master, exclaimed and quickly ran over to help him up. Father, kill him. He gripped his father's sleeves tightly with both hands, blood flowing out of his mouth as he spoke with difficulty. Kushinya was dumbfounded. She stared blankly at the scene that happened one after another. She felt as if the whole sky was falling down. The strong impact made her unable to calm down. Her blood rushed to her throat, and she felt salty in her throat. Pooh! She spat out a mouthful of blood. Her vision went black, and she fainted. Xi and Shinya. Father and Mother Ku exclaimed in a trembling voice and hurriedly caught her. Looking at the chaotic scene, everyone was stunned. Isn't this Guan clan too messy? The son of the master of the Guan family had lost the competition for the position of the young master of the Guan family. Yet he still wanted to kill someone with a knife. Now, he was sent flying by Guan Shilin's kick. Even they were shocked by the strength of Guan Shilin's kick. They estimated that he would be bedridden for at least half a month. However, compared to his killing intent, Guan Shilin's kick was considered merciful. Otherwise, with Guan Shilin's strength, it would be a piece of cake for him to turn around and kill Guan Shilin. Chapter 118. Everybody was surprised when they heard her call him brother. They didn't know Guan Shilin had a sister. Is she from a branch of the Guan clan? Are you from the Guan clan? The man beside Fengjiu asked curiously. He thought, if she is from a Guan clan, I will ask my father to propose marriage to her. That way, I can build a good relationship with the Guan clan and get the girl. Why not? Why don't I remember you from the Guan clan? Guan glanced at Fengjiu and spoke in a deep voice. Fengjiu blinked and said in surprise, Don't flatter yourself. When did I say that I'm a member of your Guan family? How dare you? Don't bully my sister. Guan Shilin, who was on the stage, also shouted after old Master Guan. His voice was as fierce as his grandfather's. Everyone was stunned and couldn't react for a long time. Is he stupid? Guan Shilin is his grandfather. How dare he talk to him like that? Guan Shilin's face turned red. Nobody knew if he was ashamed or angry. His body was shaking, and he hit the floor with his walking stick. He shouted, Rebel! Are you all rebelling? Are you all rebelling? Do you all know the rules? Guan Shilin didn't flinch. He looked at Guan Shilin's angry eyes. He stood up straight and looked at his grandfather with determination in his eyes. Master Guan Shilin panicked. Just as he was about to open his mouth and ask everyone to leave, he heard a voice full of energy and profound energy coming out of his mouth, clearly entering the ears of everyone below. I, Guan Shilin, announce that I am leaving the clan. From now on, I have nothing to do with the people in the clan. The man's voice resounded. It was like thunder striking in everybody's heart. They were shocked and took a cold breath. They couldn't believe it. Leaving the clan? Was he crazy? There was a difference between having the protection of a clan and not having the protection of a clan. What did it mean for a disciple with such outstanding talent to ask to leave the clan? That would mean that he would be cut off from his cultivation resources, and without the protection of his family, he would become a loner. The master of the Guan family gave his son to the guards to help him back to the courtyard. He looked at Guan Shilin on the stage with a sullen face. His eyes flashed, but he didn't say anything. Grandpa Guan was so angry that he was trembling. He pointed at him and said, Say it again if you dare. Guan Shilin's eyes were dark, and his voice was stiff as he said, Even if I say it 100 times, it's still the same. I, Guan Shilin, will voluntarily leave the clan. Brother Shilin, you've won the competition. You're the young master of the Guan family. How can you leave the family on your own accord? Below the stage, a young man looked at Guan Shilin worriedly and shouted, Hurry up and apologize to Grandpa. He won't hold it against you. I don't care if you agree or not. That's all I have to say today. This is also the reason why I came back today. I won't stay in the Guan family any longer. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.